to me at car shows going, "Hey, I love your video. How did you do it?" And I'd be like, "Oh, wrong guy. The guy, the guy with hair. He's your answer."
But don't you think that's crazy that considering there was actually a built-in solution for that and the dealer, let alone the manufacturer, didn't let the consumers know about it and they let their consumers to be agitated about it for 3 years. And then their hack is to come up with an ugly steering wheel. Doesn't that seem bizarre to you?
I mean, it wasn't like an over-the-air update where they
No, it was
did it
always there.
later. It
It
was
was
always
always
there.
there. Yeah.
Wow.
And I had to ask on Ferrari chat, and then it took like 3 days for someone to get back with me because that just tells you how many other people didn't know about how to do it. It makes no sense. And now driving the car with the haptics locked out and the steering and the dash isn't changing, it is unbelievably brilliant because otherwise you're driving, you're just being annoyed like every 15 seconds, like, where the hell is it doing this?
Oh.
Any event, that. Welcome to Full Throttle Talk, the podcast where horsepower meets conversation. From supercars to classic legends, high revving tech to motorsport mayhem, we cover it all. Straight from the driver's seat, whether you're a gearhead or racer or just love the thrill of the open road, you're in the right place. Buckle up, hit the gas, and let's go full throttle into today's episode.
This was
So,
me.
was it Friday
Okay,
or Saturday that on Hill Country?
it was the Saturday. So we were driving, and I don't remember the routes like you probably know the routes, but there was a coming through a little bit of town, and we were going at a really slow speed, and it was the weirdest thing because there was a Subaru that was in front of the guy leading, then I was the second, and the Subaru was going down this little turn, and he got distracted by all of us, and as this thing came to a hard left turn, he didn't pay attention and he ran his car right off the edge, the Subaru, into
Wow.
an embankment, right? So, in the time it took me as I'm driving to glance over and watch this guy run his car into an embankment, my buddy had stopped short up ahead on a one-way bridge. And literally in that time it took, I kissed the back of that damn his rubber bumper, the bumperette or whatever, the big impact bumperette.
Was this the
And
beginning of the first day?
no, it was at the end. It was at the end of the second day.
You are not
Or
selling me.
no, no, middle of the second day because I drove the car back and the car was fine. Other than I've been through 3 bumpers on this car. Let me just tell you this. That's why I like these little plastic ones. They no
You,
damage to the car. They kind of collapse and it all works.
you might be a tailgater, Dave, just for what it's worth. And neither one of you
Well,
are selling me on going on rallies.
you just don't want me behind you, Tim. That's really the key.
You know what I realized you're doing is you're just creating work for yourself, for your shop.
Unfortunately, yeah, it's not paid work. We
That's true.
pulled over. I can't remember. I think this was the day before, Paul, or I can't remember
Yeah,
where
that
we
was
pulled
that
over for that
was
deal.
yeah, I think that was the Friday. But yeah, Tim, you you may or may not like it, but you won't know until you try it.
There you go.
So
Yeah.
so North Carolina's easy. Your place is there, your car's there, your support is there. I mean, I don't know, Dave, which one should he do? Target Carolina
No, I
or
would probably have him start with Ruclos Rally. Excuse me, not Ruclos. Uh, Ruckus, Blue Ridge Ruckus, which
Well,
is going to be in Virginia.
we're back in the spring, and then we're there for the summer, and then we're there for the fall. But other than that, we're
Okay.
not there. So we miss a lot of them. But hey, listen,
Well,
this is Full Throttle Talk. Welcome back. And we've got a really fun show for all of you today. We're talking about what did you do in cars this week, automotive news, which will be a lot of fun, and then new for 2026 cars that we are excited about. I had to basically, talk Paul into doing that segment because he doesn't seem to be excited about any of them.
I'm not nothing.
I know. Segment four. Did I change this one? Oh, yes. New Year is here. What cool cars we can now import because they just reached the ripe old age of 25. Paul likes that one.
Yes, I'm much more excited about that.
And then we have a couple of bonuses and we do have a listener question. So, guys, let's just jump right in. What did you do in cars this week? David, you are first, and you finally washed your GT3 RS?
well, yes, because I actually had to, because I've driven it enough now that it required a bit of a wash. I did a couple of events, and the way we record the shows and whatnot, I wasn't able to talk about the timing of this one, which is a event that was um, at the Speedway at the Charlotte Motor Speedway out in Concord, which had a tremendous. It's like a 500 car show. Had some terrific cars out there, including a whole bunch of Ferraris from Rick Hendrick's collection. some of them, Tim, I know you would be quite excited to see. So let me cover this up so you can get a couple of shots here and you
Oh
can
yeah.
ID what we got here. We got a few different. This Monza I thought was really quite
Yep.
amazing. I'd never seen one of those in person.
Not
So
street legal, right? They're not street legal.
I don't
I don't
think
know.
I think there's some carve out. They were originally not street legal, and then they figured out some way. I don't remember the whole thing. But I
Were
think
you at Car Week when they kind of launched them and there was like 20 of them or something
yeah,
parading around?
yeah,
Okay, yeah.
That's
yeah.
a pretty wild machine, though. Like I said, I'd never seen one of these things
Well,
in person. I thought that was pretty wild.
yeah, but what's the deal with no windshield? Come on, I get it. Helmet.
You look at the helmet in the
I mean, what?
footwell.
Well, you
Yeah,
can see the little tiny little windshield or whatever. I don't know how. Yeah, exactly. The
that's what
helmet.
I'm thinking. I mean,
And then
just really,
there's my car there, and then a 356 and the magenta G body car that's my shop manager's car that we built here at the shop. So
Cool.
after that, the little baby needed a bath, so we had to bring her back here, give her a little wash, and now I've got her back inside under the covers. It was a lot of fun. And a buddy of mine bought a new GT3, or new to him, 18 GT3. That car was he took delivery 991.2 18, and then at the same time flipped out of his 997 GT3, 997.2 GT3 that he sold because he just felt that it wasn't a right fit for him, which I thought was interesting. But he was kind of caught up in that same hype of the 997, but he was in and out of that thing in like 6 months. So, and then lastly, I got to drive this car, which I took out of mothballs here. This is my 90 964 C4S, excuse me, C4, not C4S. But that's the car I've got to drive in this upcoming rally that I'm doing down in Florida called Gator Crawl, which is about 4 weeks out right now. And that would be about 45 cars, a combination of BMWs and Porsches.
So Dave, I mean,
Yes, sir.
rally in Florida, that doesn't sound like harmonious. Where in Florida
It
do
is
you
not harmonious,
drive?
Paul. It's absolutely not harmonious. It's much more for the people that I do it, right? I mean, it's a good group of guys. And the Keith Ennis, who's a friend of mine out of Jupiter, he puts this on every year, and it runs out of the Mission Inn down in Howie on the Hills. And it's like lots of straight lines and right angle turns, more straight
Ooh.
lines and right angle turns. So a little of that, but there's enough twisties and some stuff that they put together and some little side trips that go off into no, not the Everglades, but like off into the swamps and whatnot to make it interesting. And there's some cool farmland and things, and it's visually interesting. So I'm looking forward to that.
I'm just picturing you're going on the freeway, you exit, they have a little like autocross set up in a parking lot. You zip through that, back on the freeway. You do that over and
No,
over again.
there's more than that. There's more than
I
that.
know. I
But
just love poking fun at Florida.
I know, but I can't drive this car, which is my normal rally car, because it's still getting its nose repaired. Not from this repair, from the last repair, which is actually a bit worse.
the
So
Florida car.
Talking
maybe you
about,
should put like police, whatever those big bumper
yeah,
things they are.
the
That
cow
sounds like a better
pushers. I need
fit
a
for
cow
that car.
pusher on the front of it, like a route, like a safari car.
Yeah, exactly.
The Florida car vibe is significantly different from any other car vibe in the United States, especially around Porsches. I didn't realize it until I went to the Moda Miami thing last year, and all the guys that showed up when their GT3 RSs. That's where I first realized the GT3 RS has become the new sort of Lambo kind of car, because there was a lot of them, and it's not the typical high nerd. It was more of the flashy Instagram types that were driving them, but here nor there. It's probably just a unique to Miami thing. Totally different, I liked it. It was
Oh,
fun.
totally different scene.
Yep.
Have you ever gone to DRT or heard of DRT?
I haven't heard of it. What is it?
That's this
DRT is down
weekend.
in Miami. It's this weekend actually, and it's a really nicely put together show by Alvaro at Zweck and this team at Zweck that puts this on, and
I got an email for
it's
that.
really,
Yeah.
I
It
will.
stands
It's
for
really
like
neat.
Das Rennen
Ron
Treffen or
Treppen
something.
something, yeah. German word.
Das Wiener Schnitzel or Vergnügen.
Exactly.
Yeah, let me get this car out from behind me here. This is going to just depress me all day.
It
if I
is
look at that.
depressing.
Did
So
sell
Paul,
this car too, by the way. Yeah,
Paul, what
sorry.
did you do in cars this week?
Well, we talked about last time. I finally drove the Snake on Friday, and it was kind of two monumentous things. It was one, driving the Snake, which it's amazing. I posted these two pictures it's a famous shot on the top of the snake. In fact, was made famous by Larry Chen taking this photo of Matt Farah's Countach, and you could see the charred Martian-looking landscape. That was right after the Woolsey fire 7 years ago, and this stretch of road, it's only like 3 or 4 miles on Mulholland in Malibu, and it connects with the Rock Shop, which is a motorcycle hangout that Jay Leno goes to. And the people who live in this area were, I think they were so excited to close this road down, and there was rumblings that it would never open to car traffic. It was just going to be cyclists and people walking and whatever. They finally opened it after 7 years. And don't worry, within the first weekend, there was 2 crashes already. Tons of highway patrol, tons of tickets. I mean, it was hilarious what was going on with ticketing. So last Friday after New Year's, there was it had rained. It was quiet. It was like 6:30 in the morning. I decided to go up there just to drive it. I haven't driven it even before the fires. I hadn't driven it for probably 4 or 5 years before that, and it was empty. I mean, literally, I went up and down a few times. I parked. There was no one around. It's a beautiful stretch of road. I think a lot of people make more of it than it really is. It's not like, oh my God, the greatest road. It's just an iconic road. And where I'm parked up here at the top, you can see kind of the twisty stuff right here behind me. There is
Is that day that you took that picture?
Yeah, I just
from
drove
this
up,
last weekend?
parked up
Great.
on the grass. There's actually a bigger turnout, but you can't see the road with the car. And you can see that's the nice thing about my car is I just pull up onto the curb, drove up on it, took a picture. But yeah, it's an iconic, it's sort of like driving down Lombard Street. It's not even like the Tail of Dragon, which is an interesting road to drive. This is just 3 miles of really tight road that you can get in a lot of other places. But the amazing thing was how many people just reached out and go, "Where is that road? Where is that road?" And I'm like, guys, this is like, it's so cliche. It's like the Malibu road. So, and actually my favorite road there, if you're in Malibu, is Tuna Canyon, which is more east, closer to West LA. And it's a one-way road downhill. I wish it would go the other way, and it is just a blast. So that's what I did. I got to drive, and I got to.
It's a
What?
historic road, though. I mean,
Yeah,
it's famous for having a lot of, I think,
crashes.
yeah, well, crashes, but also Steve McQueen used to, blast
Yeah,
up in his Jaguars and all this crazy stuff. That's what it's
yeah.
really known for. Yeah.
But I would say the personal goal for me was this was the first time driving my green 911, aka Tortuga, on twisty roads, kind of in prep for Hill Country Rally to see, how did it feel to do a whole day of driving in that car with my clutch leg and all that. And it's doable. It's pretty good. I got a
Yeah.
couple more
That's
months.
great. When's the ice thing you're doing? The Hellas?
That's less than 2 months, end of February,
Oh my
28th.
gosh. Well, you'll be good and physically ready for that then, honestly, if you're
Yeah, and
driving.
that one's going to be more just straight drive on the freeway there. It's going to be less technical driving. I have a
Yeah.
friend coming with me. That's more of just me physically walking in snow and ice, which I still am working towards. But that one actually I'm less concerned because driving the green car manual for, 4,000 miles, which I'd say half of those are going to be twisty miles. That's the biggest thing is the energy level of using the clutch, how much energy I'll have. So,
Yeah. No, I get it. Well, we're excited for you.
yeah.
Pretty incredible. So what did we do in cars this week? It was obviously New Year's Day, so we had the run of all the roads in Puerto Rico, and I had honestly the best drive in the Ferrari 296 or GTS that I've ever had before. We were out there for 3 hours, long enough to make my back sore, and it was unbelievable. I've never enjoyed it. I've fallen in love with it maybe for the first time, even though we've had it since 2023. I originally got it just as a placeholder for a 296 Speciale, which they gave us an allocation for, but after I read about it, I didn't want it, which is really crazy. But, they offered me a coupe. I wanted a Spider. I loved our Spider, so that was that. But yeah, it was incredible. But I'll tell you, the biggest revelation I had in car world since our last call, and this seems like a dumb thing unless you're in the Ferrari world, is that the haptic buttons on the generation of the 296 and the SF90 and some of the other cars are the biggest bitch that people have. So these reviewers will review you guys realize we need to come out with Full Throttle Talk coffee. We're all sucking it
I know.
down.
We got our
We're all
Lamborghini.
sucking it down.
Yeah, exactly. But any of that. So the biggest complaints have always been about the haptic buttons. And if you guys, I don't know if you guys have any actual experience with this, it's a real thing to complain about. So you have these two, so you hold your steering wheel here, and the paddles are back there. The haptic displays are right where your thumbs are going to sometimes meander if your hands kind of come off a little bit off where you're supposed to be holding it. So if you relax a little bit, you activate the haptics. And so over on the left side, you'll activate the cruise control, and the right side, you start changing the screen mode. So the whole screen, it's digital. So it'll go from normal setting, and then all of a sudden you're looking at a huge GPS map and all this crazy stuff. So what I had heard rumor of, but I didn't know how to do it because it's not clearly labeled in the manual or in the digital display, is you can actually make it so that after you've been in the car for 15 minutes, the haptics that everyone complains about, rightfully, are locked out, so you can't change them, and you have to push your finger on a particular spot on one of the haptics to reactivate it. That's a huge. I mean, that eliminates all my complaints I had about the 296. Honestly, the haptics look better. I mean, and so what Ferrari did, which is interesting, is on the newer cars, they got rid of the haptics and they now have these awkward looking buttons there that make it look very inelegant, in my opinion. What they should have done is they should have told the dealers, and they should have done a better job themselves telling their buyers, that you can lock out the haptics after 15 seconds. And it's settings, and then you have to go a couple other places. If you guys are interested, Full Throttle Talk subscribers, listeners, I will give a full explanation, put a video up and post it in the newsletter. By the way, if you're not subscribing to the newsletter, fullthrottletalk.com, it's free. We're constantly pumping it full of great automotive content, a lot of which we talk about on the show, but I would say probably about 50% we don't. If you want the more technical drill down articles, you have to subscribe to the newsletter, fullthrottletalk.com. And also, if you are someone who has an inkling to write content and you think it would be great for the newsletter, do submit it to us. I haven't said no to anybody yet. Well, one Camaro, but that was it. But other than that, everybody else that submitted content, we put in.
And I might have said no to that. No.
Yeah, probably. You probably deleted it from Instagram before I had a chance to see it.
Tim, regarding the haptic buttons, I heard on one of the podcasts they had out here in California, I don't know, a new Ferrari launch of some kind. Mm-hmm. And it was your normal awkward press people, like corporate, trying to make a big gala, pull the thing off. No one really was that excited. But when they said that the new model, whatever it was not going to have haptic buttons, literally standing ovation. Like that is what got everyone excited.
I agree, but that was the 849 Testarossa, by the way. But still, if you guys, unfortunately, I can't get my pictures to show up. I've done trying to tech support myself on Zoom. They updated the app, but whatever. But I did load the before and after of if you see the steering wheel with haptics, it looks so much better than what they did to try to placate their consumers who don't know how to go into the settings and change so the haptics get locked out. But again, I'm going to blame Ferrari for that. Why the hell didn't they? My dealer didn't know about it. I complained about to our dealer about this 2 years ago, and they didn't know what to do. They said, keep your fingers off the haptics when you're driving the car, but you can literally lock it out. So anyway.
Is this like a YouTube video? I mean, I use those all the time. How to, connect my Bluetooth.
There isn't a single video on YouTube about this. This is the reason I'm suggesting
this should be there you go, Tim.
There you go.
Full Throttle
Talk. All right, I'm writing it down. You're right.
Do your haptic, and then suddenly, sadly, we'll be not known for Porsches anymore, but be known for tech support on your 296, which will make me throw up in my mouth a little bit. People come up to me at car shows going, "Hey, I love your video. How did you do it?" And I'd be like, "Oh, wrong guy." The guy with hair. He's your answer.
But don't you think that's crazy that considering there was actually a built-in solution for that, and the dealer, let alone the manufacturer, didn't let the consumers know about it, and they let their consumers to be agitated about it for 3 years, and then their hack is to come up with an ugly steering wheel? Doesn't that seem bizarre to you?
I mean, it wasn't like an over-the-air update where they.
No, it was always there.
It was always there.
Yeah. Wow. And I had to ask on Ferrari chat, and then it took like 3 days for someone to get back with me, because that just tells you how many other people didn't know about how to do it. It makes no sense. And now driving the car with the haptics locked out and the steering and the dash isn't changing, it is unbelievably brilliant, because otherwise you're driving, you're just being annoyed like every 15 seconds, like, where the hell is it doing this? Oh. Anyway, That's all I have on that in that regards. All right, so let's move on. Let's talk about automotive news. Now, I'll go first, and unfortunately, I can't load my pictures, but I will say this. We did a interview with a guy named Caleb Borgstrong, who's the founder of a company called RYN Motors. I don't know if you guys can maybe help me out and load some pictures because honestly, I don't know what's wrong with my Zoom that I can't load them. But let me just talk. So he and I ended up yammering for an hour, and this podcast is going to come out today or tomorrow, so you guys can watch it yourselves. I think personally, this car that he's produced is going to be I'll be shocked if it's not all over everything automotive by within 24 hours or 36 hours. Starting on January 10th, he's going to start doing pre-sales and he's going to make a site live. So why do I think this is going to be something everyone talks about? Because it's one of those things that's designed to make haters hate. And it's only going to appeal to maybe 0.5% of all car nerds out there. So what this is a Formula 3 car for the road. I talked about this a little bit on the last show. And the way he is selling it is as a three-wheeler. So originally, like the laws now is if you have a three-wheeler, you guys know this. You don't, there it is. Thank you. Now look at what Paul's showing, and hopefully our editor is going to catch to show that image. So you can literally have that car on the road and plate it in all 50 states, including California. All right. Now, why? Because it's delivered as a three-wheeler. So the back is originally a three-wheel or a single wheel. And then he sells it with an aftermarket kit that you can then, it takes 3 hours to bolt up the rear axle and the whole rear assembly with suspension, making it into a four-wheeler. Yeah, there you go. That I didn't see that picture before.
That's pretty badass.
Oh, there you go. See, like you're
it?
You're the weirdo of weirdos, like I am. Yeah, this is the reason I'm excited.
That is pretty wild.
Well, because it cuts through all the bullshit. I want a race car for it rides like a go-kart. I want a race car for the street. Well, buy a race car for the street.
There you go.
And so the body panels are right from an F3 car, and it's a mixture of carbon fiber and tube chassis. And I was quizzing him as much as I could until I ran out of technical questions to ask him about suspension. He's doing everything right. He's using all race car stuff, the brakes, everything. And it's the start on it's like 78 grand. And
wow.
it's got 220 horsepower. Paul, it's a motorcycle engine. I'm not a Prius.
Does it say is it like a Hayabusa or something?
No, he's going to put a freaking Hayabusa motor in it as an option. He doesn't have the Hayabusa motors available yet. Those effing things have 300 horsepower. Do you know that?
Oh yeah. So are they going to? Is it going to shift like a motorcycle?
Yes,
Where
a sequential,
sort of sequential. Yeah.
But sequential. Thank you. But it's going to be a paddle shift. He's somehow made it so that I don't know. I don't understand the whole thing.
What about reverse?
There's a separate reverse gear. So
Okay.
It's electric reverse.
Okay. I've seen them on like Harleys and big bikes. They'll have like a separate. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. But here's the cool thing. It's ICE, internal combustion, 13,500 RPM motor. You should have seen his face when I asked him if he considered electric, just to see what he was going to say. He basically almost jumped off the podcast. But then
his screen went dark.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. It's like me talking about Corvettes with you. Yeah, so I'm excited about that because it's street legal. It's frankly expensive, but not that expensive. No one's ever done anything like this before. If you think about the competitors for that product, it's going to be arguably the Ariel Atom, the Nomad, and there's some others that aren't coming to mind. But that is the first one that's an actual true race car. The only thing I could see, well, obvious, you could complain about safety and you complain about all those things, but you can complain about that in virtually anything nowadays, especially
motorcycle. Yeah,
exactly. No front lift. And I'm not sure how that's going to work. He said in Austin, the driveways, a lot of them are very steep, either going up or going down. And he said he hasn't had any problems clearing any of the, speed bumps and what. He lives in Austin thus far, but we'll see. What do you guys think about that? Am I completely hyped up?
No, I think it's cool. I mean, kind of like the Ariel Atom and the other ones you mentioned, when they came out, I mean, it's the modern day Caterham 7, Lotus 7. And it was always this sort of subset of human that was just sort of like bizarre and thrill seeking and just be different. I mean, the biggest problem I see with it is, let's just say you can legally drive it in California. Someone will figure out a way, whether it's plated elsewhere. Even if you're doing everything perfectly legal, the amount of times you're going to get pulled over and the conversations and this is if you do everything legal. God forbid you're going over the speed limit, which I have a feeling would be not hard. I mean, I'm just trying to picture this on Angela's Crest. It would be wild. And if you're driving around I mean, I've been pulled over by cops because of my dealer plate, and they look at the car and they think I have to be doing something wrong. And they can't really come up with it, but they basically pull you over. They'll find it some infraction just because they don't. And that's just, out here in California, especially when I'm on. I got pulled over in Angeles Crest because I didn't have my dealer plate on a McLaren. And I was intentionally going the speed limit because I knew it was a distraction. And he pulled over, and until he saw a fat white bald guy sitting in the car, he thought I was some other guy. And he's like, oh, and he looks around the car, and I explain what I'm doing. And he goes, well, you don't have your plate on the car. I go, I forgot. And the reason I don't put them on a lot is they get stolen a lot.
Yeah.
But that's my only concern. I think it's cool. I mean, anytime someone's going to do something automotively interesting, it's better than the landscape of what's new in 2026. That just made me fall asleep.
But Paul, yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you, but you're hitting the nail on the head though. That's going to open the door up to other manufacturers. Again, this is what I learned. So Caleb had another business prior to this one, and he was very successful, and he sold it. The guy's 28. So we've got a
What kind of business?
It
was he made gaming computers, and he sold it to a big conglomerate, and he's done really well. He could have just basically gone off into the sunset financially, but he didn't. He loves cars, which right there, brother, right? He loves cars. He loves motorcycles, and he wanted to make that for himself. That is the recipe for somebody who's going to do it right the first time. But he didn't tell me I couldn't say this, and so I will say it. So that's the F3. That's dimensionally, it's the same size as an F3. And the next car he's going to be making, he's got some of the renders done, but is a freaking Formula One car. So he's going to make a literal Formula One car with a real transaxle, which is going to have, what did he tell me? 500 or 600 horsepower. I didn't ask him what motor he's going to put in it. I should have. Did you guys know that the motorcycle motors, he said the all-in on that motorcycle motor with 220 horsepower is only 175 pounds. Did you guys realize those things are so light?
Yeah.
The motorcycle motor?
Yeah.
Yeah, they have to be.
Well, I get that, but how is it that
Don't forget, they don't have any emissions. They don't have the complex cooling systems. I mean, even though they do have radiators, everything's scaled down, and they rev. I mean, look what they rev to. 13,000 RPM, and I think they could rev more if they wanted.
Well, what will that thing feel like? Honestly, it's 220 horsepower. I think he said 1,143 pounds.
Well, I can tell you the last time I could fit my fat ass in something like that was Malibu Grand Prix when I was a kid. You remember that? And
yeah,
that is as close to for those who don't know, if you grew up in the 80s in California, I don't know if they had it elsewhere. They had the Malibu Grand Prix, which was like grown-up version of the cheesy little go-karts. I think you had to have a driver's permit. So growing up, like when you were 15 and a half, you got your permit. Like that was the most exciting thing, is you could finally drive a Malibu Grand Prix car, which was basically
lawnmower engine on the
cartoon version of that, F1 looking thing.
The K1 generation doesn't know how good they have it. You know what I mean? The guys just
instead of video games, we got to drive real cars.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Well, anyway, so it'll be interesting to see how the world receives that. My prediction is the podcast is going to come out on the 10th. His website's going live on the 10th. He's got a whole bunch of other Instagram car influencer types that have also got throttled back media, and that's going to be everywhere. If within, Spike will be making fun of it. People will be loving it. People will be hating on it, but everyone's going to be talking about it. So yeah, there you go. That's my opinion.
Is he making them in Austin?
Yes, he's making them in Texas.
Oh, no kidding. Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that cool?
Any sense of his production capacity or anything like that? Like what kind of numbers can he turn out?
He gave me all of his numbers, and he can basically make as many as he wants to. And he and I were talking about to make it exclusive or not exclusive. Well, I'll ask you guys, do you think when selling a product like that, you should sell one to everyone that wants to buy one, or you should make them wait and make it exclusive? If you had the ability to ramp up production and make them exclusive, would you?
No, I mean, I don't, I think the ability to ramp up production, I think you're not going to be able to. So it'll become limited just out of capacity. But if you were able to, I think, I think you'd want to sell as many as you possibly could, but I don't think there's as many buyers as there. I think it's a very niche market. I mean, a lot of us sitting there going, cool, but I'll never own one. I hope my friend owned one so I could see it from afar or drive it.
Because you can't get in it. What are you trying to say?
Well,
Yeah.
those crazy cars, it would be interesting to know how many of those things are sold just in the United States every year. There's, like I said, there's 4 or 5 of them. I wrote an article for Full Throttle Talk newsletter, comparing all the others, and this will be the least expensive one. Gosh, I wish I could remember the really beautiful one that comes out of England. It's a one-seater as well. In any event, that one's like 275. But I bet you collectively, the total amount of those weird cars are that's sold in the United States is probably about 1,000. I bet you it's that many. So that's quite a bit. More than I would.
Yeah. I mean, but what if you throw in there like the Can-Ams and the
Totally different
slingshots?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I
Don't you?
picture the
Go ahead.
Can-Am is the guy who really wants to ride a motorcycle, and for health reasons and age reasons, they're on that. But I think the slingshot, I mean, that's kind of, I think the guy who would buy a slingshot would maybe, if they don't really have a passenger, would do that because you look less weird in slingshot drivers.
Yeah,
You
it's
think
not
you look
a
less
bad
weird in
looking
a
vehicle.
sling? You look less weird in a slingshot than that.
No, 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 vice versa. No,
Oh,
Oh yeah,
you would
yeah.
look
totally.
cool in the RYN car, but you would like whenever you see someone in a slingshot, you're just like, that is someone I don't want to share a meal with.
There's a profile there for sure, and I got a
For
buddy that
sure.
sells them, right? And
Yeah.
he
But you
talks
go on
to
your
me about the client profile.
when you go on your Florida rally, Dave, you'll see some.
Ton of
Oh, a
them.
lot of slingshots down there, especially in Ocala area.
Oh
That's like
yeah.
that is,
Well, you see them in
you know,
North Carolina too, everywhere you do.
yeah.
Yeah. By the way, that car is called the FP3, as in Free Practice 3. So he's tying it into Formula One. Anyway, I
Cool.
personally, I hope that Caleb's wildly successful. So we need more young people, and I'm sure you guys will agree, especially produced in the United States, crazy ass cars like that, because that just makes the landscape more fun. And if Caleb and his ilk can prove to these big manufacturers that there's enough of us ravenous nerds out there that will buy crazy cars, then we might actually see, frankly, what David's about to present to us, more of these types of cars as far as automotive news. David, you're up next.
Yeah, I just thought this was cool. This kind of follows on the GRGT news that they'd introduced in the idea that the MR2 will be coming back, and they've put out these photos, and it's always been a very cool mid-engine car. This thing, I think, looks really the business. I think that is a really fantastic looking car. Sorry, I got to get my hand over this thing correctly here, but for those of you looking at it, it's kind of a burnt orange color, or if you can't see it, that's what I'm describing, but very neat study. There's a three-quarter view I wish I had up here of the rear haunches on this car that I think just look really fantastic. 2-liter turbocharged mid-engine car. I think this thing will sell to a very specific market, but I'm told, or at least I'm reading, that it's like the other cars previously mentioned, likely through or available through Lexus dealers instead of the typical Toyota folks. So that's something that may be coming out here later this year, which I thought was pretty interesting too, because I hadn't heard about this car until literally this past week.
Did you
So,
guys see, David, along the lines of what you're saying, I produced that list from my article I wrote for the newsletter. I think I
yeah,
posted it here on our notes about all the cool ass cars, or at least cars that are on the coolest. And did you realize how many of those were freaking Toyotas that are supposedly
yeah,
Yeah.
a lot. There's a lot of Toyotas doing some stuff. So is Hyundai though. Hyundai's really they're coming out with some cool stuff too.
well,
But
so
I
you
think
were, go
it
ahead,
comes
David.
down to who the founder is. Like the Toyota founder, this is like his. I think he's getting ready to retire. This is like his last hurrah, and he's a car guy and he's building stuff. Same thing we talked about with Jim Farley. Whoever if the guy running the ship, steering the ship is a car person, they're going to build some cool stuff, especially at the end of their career.
Well, look at this. So you have the Toyota GR GT supercar, which we talked about on last week's show. I think that one's really going to surprise all of us, honestly. I bet you that ends up being a viable Porsche, Aston Martin.
Hunter.
Yeah, exactly. Then you have the Toyota GR MR2, which David's presenting. And then
Hmm.
I was thinking of you, Paul, when I saw this one, the Toyota GR Celica. So
Yeah,
you
that's cool.
realize, yeah, exactly, man. They're making that in the like it's a rally car. That's the focus of that one. How badass is that?
Make another Carlos Sainz edition, a modern version. Yeah.
But think about this. So you have Toyota that's going to be filling in that gap because there really aren't that many fun cars. Yes, some of the Korean cars that are in that sort of
Hmm.
affordable price range. And I'm excited for all of it. And I realize it's, not like a bunch of new Porsche news. And it is fascinating. Did you guys notice on our list, the only thing that, and I'll be interesting to see what Paul's news is, but nobody's really talking about any of these new Porsches and being really excited about it. Now we're talking about Toyotas. How crazy is that?
What
Yep.
do you think of the looks of that? You like it?
Love
No,
it.
I do like it. It sounds like it's going to have something like what went in the Lotuses. The Lotus Elises back, I don't know, 15 years ago.
The
You
motor,
said it's a, yeah, the motor, it's going to be a two, is
they're
it a
putting
two
the
liter?
Yaris motor in. They're
Two
putting
liter,
they're,
yeah, 2 liter.
they're
Okay. So the three cylinder turbocharged, what
300
is it? 300
horsepower.
horsepower. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Great. Perfect motor. You know what MR2 stands for, right, Dave? Or
No, I
do you know,
don't.
Tim?
Something
No.
It's
Japanese.
no. It's actually it stood for midship runabout two-seater,
Of course, you
which
know
is kind of like a Japanese name, or like like
Chip.
BYD, whatever that wasn't, it like Beyond Your Dreams or something. It's something very happy. It's not it's not like Charger, where it'd have like Prowler mode or something.
if you guys are just listening to us, go do yourself. David, do you have any pictures of the rump on that thing? Because that even
I
looked good.
don't. Unfortunately, I didn't grab any enough, so I apologize. But
That
it's a good
design,
looking car.
well, it
Yeah.
is. It doesn't even make sense how good they nailed that one. If you look at it from the side, it looks beautiful. From the back, it looks beautiful. It's got really great arches on it. When honestly, when you guys see that, doesn't that sort of make don't you sort of scratch your head and think to yourself, WTF? Why is Porsche, our beloved brand,
Well,
giving over the fertile ground of producing a true entry level car? It doesn't make sense.
I mean, I think what Toyota's doing is because they make so many fuel efficient cars. They can go put V8s in cars. They can do a lot more ICE engines. They can turbocharge. They don't have to do hybrid plug-in. I think they have this ability from a cafe standard point to make it. I'm surprised some of the other big manufacturers that don't. And Porsche's tough because they are mostly making sports cars, and they're trying to counteract that with electric SUVs and electric sedans, and now electric Boxers and Caymans. But I think, Nissan or Honda, I mean, Honda should be doing this. If there's anyone that should be making better sports cars, it should be Honda.
Well, they're trying with this Prelude, but the Prelude just isn't
The
resonating with
whale.
anybody right now.
No,
It
it's a
just
stupid
doesn't look
car.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's
stupid.
not a good looking car. The design's bad. This design is great, and I think this is like right in there. I would consider this car if you were looking for. I would absolutely consider this car. It's in that Cayman kind of
Yep.
spot, and I think
Totally.
it's a really attractive thing. You'll get some nice looks
And
driving around in this car.
it's like the last Supra. I know it's a BMW at its heart, but that is a
Right.
really pretty car.
It's a pretty
Yeah.
car. It's got the enthusiast market. I'm just sort of, that was the most surprising thing, is this seems like it would go after their own market, maybe cannibalize their Supra market, but apparently they don't think so.
They don't make those anymore, right? The
Yeah,
last
I think the
Supra,
Supra is done this year,
yeah,
right?
Really?
yeah.
Why would they? That seems like
Well,
it did very well.
they'll come out with another one. Well, so if you guys are back in high school and you're thinking about your first car, and there you go. I mean, this is what Toyota is going to reset the stage for what people are going to want when they're older. And you're seeing what will be inevitably the next range of highly desirable enthusiast cars. So 20 years on Bring a Trailer or whatever it's called then, Bring a Spacecraft, we're going to be seeing these go for like 300 grand.
Yeah. Yes. Bring a virtual transporter
Uh,
or Star
Yeah.
Trek.
Assuming we're not
Yeah.
all being carried around by Elon Musk's
Yeah.
robots and not having to work anymore and living in a life of abundance and all these other wonderful things.
Yeah.
Paul, you're up next.
So I don't know if this is going to happen, but Arizona is creating their own version of the German Autobahn. And it's such a government, how the government loves to do acronyms? They're calling it RAPID. And it's like they probably spent more time thinking about what to call it that made sense than maybe get the law to go through, which is reasonable and prudent interstate driving. And what they want to do, hopefully soon, because I'm going through Arizona in March on the way to Hill Country Rally, and I'd love this to be activated, which is unlimited speed so long as it was safe and prudent during daylight hours and good weather on some of their interstate roads, including the historic 66 or what part of it goes through there. So this reasonable and prudent interstate driving act is supposed to maybe be proposed very soon. I don't know. If there's a state that would do it, it would be like Montana. Well, Montana sort of had that. I think they've taken it away.
Sort of taking it away.
Yeah, I don't know any chance
Texas.
to do this, because as we've learned over the years, they love to say speeding is what kills, and they, all the way back to the 70s with the 55-mile-an-hour speed limit, and that was really that was for fuel efficiency, but it was
Right.
really that was what they got the hearts and minds of the people that wanted to have a 55-mile-an-hour national speed limit. But the reality is, speed doesn't kill; distracted driving kills,
Well,
and
differential speed kills. Speed
yes.
itself, it differential
Oh,
speed. Sudden
and
stopping.
when when
The
we drive
stop,
out
not the
from
speed.
California.
Exactly. That's what kills.
No, you're right. When we drive out from California to, to Texas, the biggest problem we see, like in Texas, it's 80 miles an hour on the 10, and there's no difference whether you're a truck or a car. And two big things that they do, which I wish California do. First of all, trucks are limited to, with trailers, 55 miles an hour. So like if you've driven on the 5 freeway, it is a game. It is you think driving straight for 300 miles on the 5 would be just passive, but it is the most aggressive thing because you're trying to pass trucks. The delta of speed is posted 20 miles an hour different, but we all know that's like 30 miles an hour difference. So it creates this cluster, it creates accidents. But when you get to Texas, everyone's going 80 miles an hour.
Or
Everyone's going the
faster.
same speed or
I think,
faster, but
yeah, I think on it starts in the Texas Autobahn. Is it 110? I used to live there. I should know. No, I don't remember. Anyway, in case you guys don't know, there's a road, it's a toll road that the Chinese own, I'm pretty sure, that starts a little bit north of Houston and goes all the way up to Georgetown, Texas. And the lower part of it near Houston, I believe the posted speed limit is 85, and then it goes to 80. And most people will go like 90, and then the cops really don't care. 90 to 95, and the cops don't care. Except, remember, I warned you about this. If it's Formula One weekend, and then the cops are freaking everywhere just taking tourist money. Yeah,
yeah.
that's what
So
happens.
and the other problem I've found is in California, and I think this is a psychological problem. They post signs that say slower traffic, move right. Now, human nature, no one likes to be called slow. And first of all, now in Texas, they say left lane for passing. And what I found is that the highway patrol in Texas on the 10 is really good about making sure people, I've seen them come up along us and flash their lights and scare the crap out of someone to get out of the left lane. They didn't give them a ticket, they just moved them out of the way. And I think those two things, with the trucks going the same speed, there's not a huge delta, and people also staying out of the left lane because they know it's for passing, not because they're slow. So I think if California just changed their signs about slow, stay right, that would solve half the problem.
Can I tell you guys a fun story about driving in Montana back when it was safe and prudent? Okay. So Julie, this was in the late 90s. We leased a new, do you guys remember these big Mazda Millenniums, these big sedans?
Oh, those are
Oh,
awesome.
They
sure.
were
Yeah, that
actually,
was great.
we,
That was
we
a good
just,
car. My
they,
mother
They had
rode
the
too.
vents that did this.
I know, we just
Oh,
got, and they look cool. They look modern, but
Yeah, it was a good looking car. Yeah.
we just got into real estate. We decided to take a little vacation out west. So we drove out to Montana because Julie had some extended family that lived in Red Lodge. And anyway, long story short, there was no speed limit in Montana. And as soon as we crossed over to Montana, I was like hammered down. And the max, and I knew the max, like I didn't want to literally drive the tires off the car. So I set the cruise control at like 115, 120 miles per hour. And I was just blazing. And if you've never been to Montana before, the roads are just straight as an arrow. You can see freaking forever both directions. So don't think I'm being reckless. I wasn't. And it was a new car. I am on this freaking road and I see this, thing way behind me. Long ass road. I could see it coming for miles and miles and miles. I was probably watching this thing come up on me for easily 20 minutes, and it blows past me like I was standing still. It was some rancher in his effing pickup truck. And I already told you how fast I was going. He had to pass me going like 130 to 140 miles per hour. There was some big diesel ass pickup truck just blazed right past me. That was badass. And the
oh my
Mazda
God.
was like, I ain't giving you no more, son. That's all you got.
That's it.
Wow.
We drove max speed in that car for a full tank of gas.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Breaking
That,
miles.
How long did you own that one?
it was leased, so
Oh, okay.
Perfect.
miles exactly.
Whoever got it next wasn't happy.
No, well, I mean, it's Japanese. Those things are made really well. What are you talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah.
Well,
Well,
but
and you
so,
also, it probably was also now broken in properly, so it goes faster all the time. Like you get these cars that are just lazy, and that car was
Yes.
probably the guy got it and goes, why is this one faster?
There's no carbon
This
on
is
the valves,
heavy.
that's for sure. But so did you hear whether or not this thing's actually going to be a thing, or are they just yammering about it?
No, it will. They're pushing it, and it's not new. They've done this law. They brought it up, but this guy's really, for whatever reason, let's see, the guy behind the law is Nick Cooper. He's one of the Arizona representatives, and he just says in rural Arizona, when the right conditions are met, this is ridiculous. In the end, they don't really have enough law enforcement to patrol those areas anyway. So I think that he just says it's just going to be easier to do. I think it's really for him to just get excitement with car people in the area and get people like us talking about it. So kind of
Does
like
it
that.
require a special pass or anything? Do you have to pay to
No,
get this thing? It
no,
feels
it
like it
just
should be.
says he
I'd pay
wants to
though.
do
What would you pay, David?
Yeah, of course,
I'd
I'd pay.
totally pay.
I
he
don't
Put a
know,
wants to
toll
do
on
a
there.
$100 a year, maybe.
Oh yeah, like a toll, like in the Mexican toll road where you go down to Baja and you just pay the toll and you just go. He wants to introduce a 1-year pilot program. It would be on a segment of the 8 south of Phoenix, which, by the way, going out to Hill Country, we're going to be taking the 8 from San Diego all the way across through Tucson. So I was like, this, and I've been on that road. There is nothing there.
Nothing.
I mean, I've pulled over there just to pee in a saguaro, and I've sat there, and there's for 10 minutes not a car goes by. So it's fantastic. And he looked at, basically a lot of studies on the Montana, when they did this in Montana, with their unlimited speed. And I don't see why it would not pass, because it's literally an area that I think a lot of these people use, and it's just, you know, but we'll see. He's got 2 months. Go, Nick, get it passed.
Yeah.
Go, Nick,
Get it
go.
passed for me. Come on, do it for a
But this,
Californian.
but this is what's happening. I mean, all of us are so conditioned to thinking that other people are going to dictate, like the government and all these really smart people. Oh, you all are going to be in electric cars. You're all going to be in hybrids. You're all going to be, speed kills and all these types of things. And almost like there's a common sense, practical vibe that's starting to take over automotive again, which I'm really excited about. We'll see if it lasts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
doesn't hurt. Doesn't hurt.
Yeah, exactly. Now I put this in here, and you guys can yammer about this if you want to, but you guys were talking about this on the WhatsApp thing. I was just reading what you guys were talking about, going back and forth, and I was learning some shit, and I thought probably our listeners would appreciate it as well. Do you guys want to talk about the next thing I've got up?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay,
You
so
bet.
this is what's happening in auctions. No reserve, no listing on bat. We started this conversation on our show probably 3 or 4 episodes ago, and it got a lot of back and forth in the comments. But these guys were having a conversation on our WhatsApp group, which I, again, was very fascinated by. So, David, I'm going to turn it over to you if you can kind of pick it up mentally where we were at on that, or do you want to start, Paul?
No, what I want
no, well,
Dave
go
should
ahead,
start
Paul.
because Dave has
Yeah.
done more auctions. I've only done 3 auctions on Bring a Trailer, and the last one was like 4 years ago, almost, no, 5 years ago. So
Let me tee it up though. So I'll tee it up. So we start at the right place. You guys were telling me that BAT is pressuring, your perception is that BAT is pressuring their, consignees, yes, to do no reserve auctions. Is that a good place to hand it off, David?
I don't know if it's pressure, but they definitely want to make sure that the car meets reserve, right? So there's this particular car behind me did not sell on BAT. I listed it. The action was phenomenal. The questions were great. The responses were right. And, nobody was
So-
trying to torpedo this car.
For the
This
listeners-
is a 79 911 SC in Talbot yellow. Very nice looking car, rare color. So what happened was this car went up, and the close date was this past Monday, which was the first day we all went back to work. So my take on it, based on the action that I was seeing on this, was that the audience just wasn't there for this car to go, and it did not meet reserve. Now, when I was dealing with this car originally, getting it listed, BAT wanted me to set the reserve lower. But I had enough sell-through history with them that I think they just said, okay, we'll let this guy see if we can get this number based on the color and so on and so on. Didn't get there. BAT has now put in a new feature where behind their paywall, they will give the seller and the top buyer one opportunity to make a deal behind their paywall. So you have to do it within 24 hours. I would put up a number, and then if the potential buyer would accept that number, it would still occur for BAT, and they would get their 5% up to $7,500 fee, which
Well,
is makes sense to me.
not 5%, right? It's up to $7,500 flat fee, not
Well,
5%.
no,
No, it's a
5%.
5% of the value up to a max of $7,500.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yep.
Yep.
So it's 5% of the number. Yeah, and so you're talking $3,500 or so on a car that's like this. And I can understand why they want to do that, because the minute they used to just give you the name of the top bidder, and then all that would happen outside of BAT, and they would lose out on whatever their commission would be on that sale. So in this particular case, it was a non-issue for me because after the auction, I immediately got 5 different inquiries on this car, and the car was sold within 30 minutes of the end of the auction. So at or above, I should say, the reserve that I had set with BAT on the car.
Interesting.
So
Was
for
was the
me, it
buyer
worked out.
was the buyer the top bidder, or because
Oh, he
you're in a
was the number
business, so they
two
all know your
bidder.
website.
Correct. I mean, I'm not as hidden on BAT as other people might be, so people can find me on a
Yeah.
car. I don't know how BAT feels about that, but there's plenty of these guys that are out there selling on BAT that it doesn't matter. But one of the things about this auction, and sometimes it's how you can control it, is that it was civilized. The people asked questions, the answers were good, the responses were timely, not like that 2.7 73 RS
RS.
touring that is still on. I don't think that's got a few more days, doesn't it, Paul?
Yeah, I think so. But with going
That
back to
car's going to be
Dave's
cream. Yeah.
auction with that Talbot yellow, and this is sort of my frustration because the auction did do well in terms of communication. Dave's response, the buyers were not jerks. They weren't trying to undermine anything. It was a good auction. I think Monday after 2 weeks of holiday was part of the problem. But to me, the biggest problem I think was on Bring a Trailer because what they ended up doing, buyers are lazy. They become even lazier and they want a quick hit of what the car is. And you look at the beginning, you just go yellow SC, cool interior, 175,000 miles. Wow, that's this amount. And if you look at if you have to drill way down into your comments to see that the engine's got a compression test leak down, if I were you, Dave, in the future, I would push them to highlight that in the top bullet points because for me, I was like, whatever happened to the engine? That's the big concern.
Sure, of
175,000
course.
miles. Now, in the end, the engine got rebuilt at 90,000 miles, which basically fixed all the problems, usually with those head studs. And I wish in that, like what drives me crazy about it's almost like AI written content on the
Hmm.
description of the cars. They have this limited space. And I see them repeat the same crap. It came with air conditioning and power windows. And who the F cares about that? I want to
Yeah.
see like, hey, engine was rebuilt at 90,000 miles. And since then we did a compression leak down. It's this. And then if as a buyer, you go, okay, this is a refurbished car. It's not
Sure,
a,
it's sorted.
yeah. So
They were actually
that was the
pushing me
problem.
as well. I have an inch thick file. Here it's still right here, as a matter of fact.
They were
All the
pressuring you, as in
receipts.
bring your trailer was
Bring a
pressuring.
trailer, right? So
Okay.
here's the receipts on this car, right? They date back to as well as the original books on the car. So these date back to like 78, 79. And they wanted me to take pictures of all that stuff and post it up and all that. I took one picture of the stuff splayed out on the table because all that is to me is just fodder for some guy to poke in there and start looking back. Oh, 3 years ago, this didn't get the right weight oil than when
But
it was put in. And
let me give you the flip side to that. They were trying, right? I mean, that's the thing about the bring a trailer guys. What a stellar business, really. Bring coming and
Mhm.
going, it just is. And the fact that they were trying to help you deal with the questions with regards to the mechanics of it, that's pretty cool. Not all auction houses would do that. Most auction houses would just beat on you to lower your reserve.
Well, it was kind of the other way. That was at the beginning of the auction. So they have this policy or this procedure that they take you through as they're intaking your car. They want these photos. They can't have watermarks on the photos. You
Mm,
have undercarriage shots that you have to have. They want driving videos. They want all these things.
it's a
And they
lot.
kind of prompt you through. They've got a whole history of all this. It's a lot of work. It really is. But if you want to get the right money for your car, you really do have to go and do all that stuff. And I think they have a nice auction. It's really wonderful. I don't have any real bitch about it. Now, I don't know whether or not this thing is ever it wasn't it wasn't flagged, it wasn't a bad auction, it wasn't people beating it up. It just didn't meet reserve and it was off by a few $1,000s. So we got the deal done. It all happened. And I'll probably have another one coming up on BAT here pretty quickly. I may list a M491 Target that I've got.
So there's been some research, and this is Paul, where I can reel you in on the auction no reserve net price to the seller versus the guys that run reserves. And of course, the articles I've written have been by the big auction houses. So they've all said the best way to go is no reserve auctions, because you end up netting more, because people get more geeked up because they know they can actually, buy the damn car. Do you guys have any opinion on that? As professional sellers, don't you, you could get really screwed by doing no reserve.
Absolutely.
I think I agree with I'm torn with it. I mean, I think if you're going to do a bring a trailer auction, and I tell my clients two things, it's almost got to the point where you need a professional seller like Dave to do it. I think if you think you novice guy who sold a car 10 years ago think you can run a bring a trailer auction with success, you're foolish. And number two, I think you have to sell that car. Like that one, like Dave's car got sold right after auction. If you don't get it sold during auction or right after auction, you almost are going to kill the value of the car. So you might, I don't have the huevos for reserve, for doing no reserve.
So many things on no reserve. You better have a very special car like this car, because the eyeballs weren't on it, and you can't take the risk on that because you don't really have any say per se with BAT as to when they will let that start and when it will finish.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, you do if you have enough clout. Like I know people who do a lot, and they can say, and it would be. When I was trying to go into Bring a Trailer's back end just to find out, I think Tuesday through Thursday are the best days to end an auction.
Yeah,
that's kind of what I think it is. They won't say anything about that because, of course, I certainly don't think Sunday noon is a good time to end an auction. And I think with Dave's case, ending Monday right after a 2-week vacation, because as we found, what did we say the sell through rate of reserve auctions was like. Was just
something percent.
Yeah,
60,
it was like half.
Yeah.
It was horrible. Yeah. And by the way, I looked at it today. It was like 30%.
But this is on BAT, right? This is on BAT. Yeah.
Which by the way is probably better. I'm curious to see what the sell-through rate is on cars and bids and PCAR. I'll bet you the sell-through rate of reserve auctions is not as great. And they'll publish numbers because if you just group it all together, it looks like we had an 85% sell-through rate, which is great. But like for instance, yesterday and today, half of their auctions on Bring a Trailer were no reserve. Half of them, which means, and by the way, I remember I started capturing this data like 3 years ago. It was more like maybe 35% were no reserve. So I think Bring a Trailer's pushing towards no reserve because they need to make money. They can't not have an auction not happen. And I don't know.
And I mean, I'm concerned that because mine did not meet reserve, that the next time around I go, I'm going to have a harder time getting them to give me the reserve I want because now I'm 1 for 6 or whatever that didn't hit. So
yeah, I mean, my suggestion to you, Dave, to guys like Casey and anyone else doing these kind of auctions, your goal is to use Bring a Trailer to build a following, get them off Bring a Trailer, get them to Sonderworks, go, as we talked about, newsletters, basically have a curated group of clients. So I am grateful and thankful I don't have to use Bring a Trailer because I honestly, I don't have the stomach for it. I would feel sick constantly.
So having to be on it, you're there a week. You've got to be glued to your phone looking for every question because you'll get blown right up the minute you don't answer something.
And as soon as you don't answer a question about like some silly detail, then like 10 other people start thinking you're trying to hide something. Like, what is that? What is the spare tires date stamp on it? Or, all sorts of bullshit. Oh, he didn't answer that question. There must be a body in the trunk. I mean, some of the people go nutty.
And we could certainly... And if you have anything that's special, like that RS, 73 RS, anything that's collector grade, oh boy, you better be on point. And as we talked about going to no reserve, I think where no reserve works the best, which means you got to have big huevos. is on the high end collectible, no excuses, no stories. That car is so vetted. So, for instance, like some of the Jerry Seinfeld stuff that has been going through, like they don't need a reserve. I mean, I don't know what is a 96436 in slate gray. What did it go for? 800. I mean, do you realize that car, which went for $700,000 or $800,000, which I think a lot of people thought was like 40% over market, it has literally pulled everything 964 wide body up. The 91 92s that were hovering right under 200 are now hovering under 300. Even yesterday, a red tan Carrera 4, they made 267. They're just the wide bodies with no tail, with 100 and some thousand miles, sold for 210. That was a $160,000 car like yesterday. So, I mean, I I'm not a no reserve guy, but like if I had something like that, there's a time and place. I'm glad you didn't do no reserve, Dave. You'd be screwed. You would have left a
I
lot of
know I
money on the
wouldn't be
table.
happy if that was the case. I wouldn't have been, and I didn't have,
It,
you
and
got
what
to have a little something there.
and what pisses me off about that, even though I'm not using Bring a Trailer, these are the comps that are benchmarking the cars that I'm selling. And someone
Hmm.
go, and here's the weird thing. I was talking to a client yesterday. Buyers will, it just said bid to XXX. That does not mean it sell. It just means at that moment in time, two people thought it was worth that. And there's all these outside variables that influence it. And then the buyer called a buyer for another car. I have an SC for sale. They call up and they go, well, hey, this car sold for that. I pull it up and I go, well, no, it didn't. It bid to that. Well, isn't
Hmm.
that the same thing? I mean, they associate that. And so,
Sure,
and
of
those are the only guys
course.
calling me that let me explain the difference between bid to and sold. How about the guys who never get to that point? So, I mean, that's a little mini rant from Paul. There you go.
Well, but
Yeah,
you did have a
good.
good business lesson, and it's true. If you cannot, if you build your mansion on land you do not own, you are always going to be subject to being screwed. And what that means basically is what Paul said about a newsletter. So if you're building your whole business predicated on Bat's rules and somebody else determining whether you're going to be successful or not, they change this, they change the other thing, you're never really going to own a business. But if you actually have a newsletter or something similar where you have your own database, like what Paul does, it's taken him years to form that newsletter, but you get so business owners, this is the Shangri-La, right? You got to have your own list because every time you've got a new product, every time you've got a new car, every time you've got a new whatever, you just hit it to your list and those people already know, love, and trust you. You don't have to prove yourself to them. Chances are your customers are already there. And Paul, your list is definitely less than 1,000 people, right? I mean, it's hundreds, isn't it?
Oh, no, 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 no. My list is the email list is 7,000 and then the social media stuff is 40,000, but the core list, and believe it or not, I've been trying to debate this because we've had a problem where the people who are on the list to get the newsletter of the new car, they're out of the last 20 cars, I've only sent emails out on 3 of them because they sold before I could even do the newsletter. And so I've almost thought about, which part of me doesn't, I feel gross about doing it, is doing a Patreon if you want to be like in
Oh,
this list to
yes.
follow up on coming
Ultra
soon and be the
exclusive.
first.
Yes.
And
Yes.
really, my goal is to make it fair.
Hold on, Paul. You are hanging out with me too frequently, too often,
I
because
know
now
it's
you're starting to sound like a communist or less like a communist socialist and more like a normal human trying to
Capitalist.
make money.
I know. I just want to be fair, but and really, it's
You
not
want to
even
be
about the
fair by
money.
making them pay to be on your list. I like that. It's my kind of fair.
And I listened to this on a podcast, and it struck me as a nerve. Think about in your business, Tim, with housing, there is no issue with a bidding war, and you publish a house price at this, and there's a bidding war, and when there's a hot market, very often that house sells for above list. The place I live in now, I had to bid 10% over just to get the house.
Let me share with you.
Imagine doing that with cars.
I had
The
a
amount of hate you would get.
This was years ago, and Julie and I were consulting with a brokerage that represented a builder, and they were building in a neighborhood where there was like 20 buyers for every single house. And so the builder built like 20 freaking houses and had like another 30 lots that they were going to sell. What are we going to do? And each of the build reps had their own little, buddies list and all the rest of it. And they wanted to neutralize all the preferential treatment that people were going to have. So what they did is we formed basically not an auction, but a lottery. So all the people that wanted a car, listen to me, wanted a house, they filled out a form and they went into this list, and then I don't know how they went about choosing who got to bid first, but then they selected 20 people from the hat, let's say, and those were the first people that were offered an opportunity to buy a house. And if they said no, then they pulled more people out. And you could hypothetically do that when you have a new car that's going to come up that you know everyone's going to want. Maybe you just say this: look, if you're interested in this one, put your name on this list, and I'll share it with you first. And this is what, you know, and do your own little private auction. You could do that.
I've gone back and forth, and it's tough because it's this philosophy. If you post something, let's say, have you ever seen that someone puts a car up for sale with no price? They get all these inquiries and they associate that with, oh my God, this is a hot product. And I go, no, no, no. You put a price on it, you'll know if it's a hot product. And so then they put a price on it, no one calls, which tells me one thing.
You could do the whole value range game, like the auction houses do with the range that they suspect it'll sell for.
And I essentially do that verbally because what happens is we get a new car, we put it on coming soon. We're in the process of vetting it. We're kind of teasing people like movie trailers, and and it has enough data where their next question has to be, what is this going to cost? How much is this? And I don't legitimately have an exact price because I haven't gone through everything. I don't know. I may find something that adds huge value. I may find something that detracts value. And so I'll give them a range. Say, hey, it's going to sell in the $80,000 range.
Yep.
And then as I start going through it, I find things that add more value. I find that the buyers are really engaged with it. And then I realize, oh, I can have more. But then once I put it on our website, here it is. I pre-chewed your food. It's vetted. Here's everything I know about the car. Like literally, I probably know more than the owner who's had it for the last 10 years, and I've only had it for 2 weeks. And it's this price. I can't go back because and even here's the funny thing is I'll have people saying, I already took a deposit to the first guy in line. And then another guy goes, hey, I'll pay that guy $10,000 to give up his spot. Here's the funny thing is most of the time I've tried it. I mean, right now, striking 100% fail. When you put their money to the mouth and say, hey, the owner's ready to go. They're like, oh, gosh, And what they next do is they throw their poor wife under the bus.
Yeah.
Oh, my. And it pisses me off because I was like, hey, let me call your wife. I will bet you money. If you are in my shop or talking to me about a car guys, we're kind of wusses. We're there because our wife already said, okay.
Exactly.
For sure. And I posted one of my newsletters was something like, hey, your wife called and said it was okay.
Yeah.
And then I went on to say like, hey, stop throwing your wife under the bus. You know what? Just say you can't afford it.
No, Paul, next time someone says that to you, here's what you do. You say, you know what? Let's call her. I'll put it on speaker. I'll put it on speaker and let's ask her right in front of you. And you know what? Then they're going to admit that they're kind of waffling.
No, don't. No. She'll be so mad.
All right. Segment 3, new for 2026 cars. I have a feeling we'll go through this relatively quick that we're all excited about or should be. Choose the maybe 2 or 4. Anyway, that's it. So what are the 2 to 4 cars new for 2026 that you guys are already excited about? Are excited about. I'll go first. Paul's for whatever reason, I can't share pictures today, but Paul's putting the first one up, which is the Caterham. Now, this is an electric car, which kind of, I was surprised I liked it, but it's a Caterham Project V. That car's starting out only selling in the UK, but they already said they're going to sell it in the United States.
You said
Yes, Paul, I get your protest. All right, you know what? I'm going to, just because of that, you got to go find a picture of a Corvette C8 ZR1X.
My internet just went down.
It's a shame.
Yeah. Well, so I'm excited. I think that's going to be a cool car. I really like the one that David put up. Thank you, David. I really like the one that David put up earlier about the Toyota GR MR2. That car is going to be phenomenal, especially because they're not going to overprice it.
And it's going to have a nice engine. It's going to be nice. It's a gas-powered car.
Yeah.
I don't even think it's going to be like a mild hybrid. I think it'll be just an internal combustion engine with probably a turbo, which I am fine.
Yep.
Totally.
Yep. I want to say 250 horsepower, maybe something like that is what I read.
All right. So
I bet you it'll weigh under 3,000. Do you think they'll get it under 3,000 pounds?
Oh, I bet you they will.
Wanted to.
Yeah. I mean, it's just hard. It's hard with, all the standards, but here you go. Here's your electric thing.
Okay.
It's pretty.
It is pretty. The back, actually the back 3/4 looks best, but there you go. Don't you think that looks cool?
Oh,
okay. What car from the 70s
looks awesome.
look like? What car from the 70s does that look like? Guys.
Oh, it looks like a Ferrari Dino.
Opel GT.
Maybe with the front.
I was thinking Opel GT or an Aston Martin from the B pillar back.
Well, I do like it's got like these really mini flying buttresses, and I can't tell if that's like a glass cover that hovers over the trunk. Like, is there a space between the trunk lid and the glass cover?
I couldn't
I don't
tell.
know.
Those are just really nice
I didn't get
renderings.
a lot of interior pictures, but I the only thing I really like about the interior, well, first of all, obviously because it's electric, there's no manual. That's really too bad because it looks like a great car. I mean, go grab that Toyota engine because that's a very Lotus thing anyway, and go stick the MR2 engine in this car, and then you've got something. But the one thing I do like about it, if you look at the interior, it's got like old Jaguar toggle switches. See them like with the
Oh
little,
yeah,
there's
you're
like
right.
Oh
there's
yeah,
like the
yeah. No, that's
little
cool.
things to keep you from hitting it. And then one of my favorite features on like old Mercedes had this. Remember the round
Yep.
vents where you could, and actually, little pro tip, if you have an air cooled 911, those Mercedes round vents fit where the clock goes,
That goes.
and it
Yep.
makes a really cool air vent. Because have you ever driven an air cooled 911 with one gauge out or any gauges out?
Sure.
Have you ever?
Sure. All the
It's
time.
like a monsoon. It hits you with so much air because that front scoop shoots in there. And if you take one of these Mercedes style ocular, spherical air vents, fits where the clock goes, and you have not air conditioning, but you have a hair dryer.
Hey, Paul, you can keep talking
Or,
as long
or
as you want to. I am going to talk about the Corvette ZR1X. I know what you're
Ah,
trying to do. You're trying
no.
to talk me
Well,
into the next
and
topic.
well, folks, we are out of time.
yeah.
Well,
Well,
but listen,
the
I just
Ford
want to say,
F-150 vent fits in there too, Paul, by the way,
Oh, perfect.
in that hole.
oh
Yes.
my God, you guys are really trying to drive me crazy. Let me just get it out. All right. So this last one, I know, I do think this is incredible, but the new C8 ZR1X. I'm just going to say it. You guys don't have to say anything. But the dyno results on the ZR1 are coming in. That car at the crank, and this is a question I have for you guys because I honestly don't know. That car at the crank is 1,200 horsepower. The ZR1X with, I think it's going to have an additional 182 horsepower. So you're talking about a car at the crank. It's going to be 1,300 to 1,400 horsepower, which, you could say, well, remember the X is all-wheel drive. Does Porsche do at the crank or at the wheels?
I don't. I
God, I
mean,
don't
they
know the answer
say
to
they
that, but
say at the crank, but it's all German cars traditionally have always been conservative, whereas typically domestic cars have always, outside of the 60s where they're sandbagging for insurance, outside of that, generally American cars have been more generous on their horsepower ratings than European cars, especially German.
But
But
I don't think that's true anymore because those guys could run afoul of the law. I
I
mean,
mean, I don't follow really what the different. I mean, I don't see as much. Remember when growing up or in the 80s and 90s, we would go to dyno days. I remember there would be
yep.
events where we would run cars and dynos. I don't see people doing dyno days anymore. I don't know
Well,
if they just
Hennessy
don't care.
Hennessy is the one that did the dyno results on the ZR1 that I just told you about, and it
That's
was,
a very Hennessy thing to do.
of course, he's going to modify. He's going to modify him. But you guys don't, as far as the automotive world. If you're selling a hypercar, if you're selling a this or that, the other thing, and one of your brag points, one of your unique selling propositions was horsepower or performance, and I'll use Porsche as an example. A GT3 RS. Guess you guys saw the video with Jason Camisa and with
Mhm.
I
Randy
had a
Brooks
problem with that
driving.
video. I'll tell you about it, but go ahead.
Oh boy, here we go. Oh,
I
this is
had a
good.
big
Oh
problem
yeah,
with it.
it's a
You
good
got
video,
okay,
but
okay. Hold on. But the Corvette eviscerated the GT3 RS and on a track. It did it by 2 seconds. I don't know if you know anything
Yeah,
about racing, son, but that's
it was apples
evisceration.
and oranges. Apples and oranges.
Okay, here we go. Let's go. Let's
If it
hear
was
it.
a GT, so here's the problem I have, and I love Jason. That video is fantastic, and there's
Mhm.
no question that the Corvette is an incredible machine, and I think the Mustang was comparable, but really you had the Mustang and the Porsche were in the same class, and what really the competitive car to which is Porsche hadn't doesn't have yet is the GT2 RS. The GT2 RS is really the apples to
For
apples
the
with the Corvette
ZR1. Okay,
for the ZR1.
but
I
so
think
what
they
is
should have had a Z06.
but the
That's
Z,
more
but
in
the
line.
GT3 RS now, even at list, is still 80 to $100,000 more than the
But take
ZR1.
out the price. It's not about price. It's about, horsepower, weight, and all that. I just think they're in different leagues. It's like having a GT2 class race car competing in a GT3 class race car. They're in different classes. And of course,
But they're
it's
not.
going to be,
Those cars race against each other in class. GT3s are racing against ZR1s. They do. And
I
well,
don't think they're, no, I don't think they're
Z06s.
racing against a ZR1. There's no way they're running a
I,
1,000
They
horsepower
don't race
ZR1.
ZR1s. I said it wrong, but they're racing against Z06s.
which that's my point. That comparison shouldn't have been done with the ZR1. It should have been done with the Z06 because that is the
At the same
comparable
time, Paul,
car,
but you know,
I
but think
think,
about
to the
that.
Corvette. And when you know what I'd rather see is when the new GT2 RS comes out. Now
Mhm.
let's go benchmark it against the
Yeah,
ZR1.
it's gonna kick its ass.
No, I don't think it
Absolutely.
will.
And here's
Oh, it
beyond
will. It
like
will.
bench racing, armchair quarterbacking, all this crap. Here's the funny thing I've heard from several automotive journalists who've done these bench. They all commend the Corvette and how amazing it is and how good it is. There's no one questioning its prowess on the track and the performance capabilities. But the irony is, so like they'll go. I think Matt Farah talked about it. They did the performance car of the year. He drove all the cars, said the Corvette's great. At the end of the day, all the journalists grabbed keys to drive home, to drive back to the hotel and do the road test first thing in the morning. And Matt was talking about how he hid the GT3 RS key so he could drive that car or the GT3, whatever. Basically, even though the Corvette was better on the track, he would have rather driven the Porsche on the street. And I think ultimately, you can say it's the Porsche cult thing or
It
whatever.
is. It's the Porsche cult thing. That's what it
But
is.
but I also
I
think,
feel the same way, truthfully.
yeah.
But I
And
do.
you dug into that video though; they were all commenting. I mean, who's the driver? I can't remember.
Randy
who was
Probst.
commenting.
Randy Probst.
Okay.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, but he even was saying that the Corvette just doesn't feel like the Porsche. I mean, there was no question that it performed better than the Porsche, but it just doesn't feel as. I think it's quality.
Well,
I think
yeah.
it's materials. I
But
think
that's
it's
where the
all those
price,
kinds
that's
of
why
things.
it's a price.
Yeah,
It's, what is it,
exactly.
a third less than the Porsche?
I think you guys are both projecting, to be honest with you, because I watched that video 3 times, and because I was trying to take notes for the sake of this show to try to win an argument against you morons, which I'm clearly not going to do. Okay. I'm just going to, but the reality of it is the C8 ZR1, and now you have the ZR1X. So David, along your logic, okay.
Mhm.
I can't believe you guys are playing with me today on Corvettes. This is awesome.
We're basically, Dave and I are going to filibuster you.
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
Well, okay. Well, let me ask this
yeah.
one last question. All right. So if the ZR1X, the average on that one's going to be 250 grand, and that car is going to be unbelievably fast, all-wheel drive, the whole thing. You tell me what the competitor is for that thing at $250,000.
Are you talking about price and performance? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, but you're just basically you're changing the rules because you want to throw in you're making the horsepower thing now the outlier.
But Jason never really talked as much about price as it was capability on the track, and this was the.
But they're track cars, right?
Yes, and he was talking about equalizer,
correct,
and I
but
said my only problem was I want to see this comparison with the GT2 RS. I don't think Ford's going to have anything more performance oriented than the GTD. The GTD and the GT3 RS, I think those are close competitors. And I think sadly, I think it's a great effort by Ford. I think sadly, weight is its nemesis, and I don't think they can get around the weight.
Right.
But I think though the Corvette, I would have rather seen that as a Z06 competition because I think those, at least on a performance level on paper, are similar. But
Here's the story.
what the Corvette did, I mean, it was only 2 seconds a lap faster with double the
Do you know
horsepower.
how time works?
That's a
if it's
lot.
2 seconds
No,
a lap faster after a 12 or 15 hour or 15 lap, that's minutes faster.
But here's the funny thing is
It
when
accumulates.
they go to a long track like the Nürburgring, they were really close.
Yeah,
They
but
were
they're
really close.
They're really close, driven by non-professional drivers.
No, they were they didn't have the same driver.
They were not. They were not. They were GM engineers. And if you go through, and I'm so glad we're debating this, Paul. I actually roped you in. Yes. All right. Okay. So they didn't. If you watch this, who's that guy that Misha or whatever, right? The guy that's basically famous for driving the in-ring faster than basically anybody else. He watched those guys weren't going up on the curbs. They weren't the GM engineers. They weren't driving the full track. And he said he thought that if you'd put a real, someone who's actually experienced in the Nürburgring, a real driver in there versus guys that are engineers that, drive, you guys get the difference. I don't have to tell you.
Yeah.
It's your risk tolerance. It's how willing you are to kill yourself. That's the difference between a high amateur and a professional driver.
So why didn't
he
put
said they
the
were
pro
leaving,
in there?
he thought 4 or 5 seconds. I don't
No,
know.
I believe it.
I don't know why.
It seems like if you're going to take all that expense,
Well,
I can imagine what it costs to close that track down, take it over, do that. Why wouldn't you hire a hot shoe?
They used those same drivers when they were dominating the U.S. tracks and beating, guess what? Your GT3 RS and all the U.S. tracks as well, and a Z06 and a ZR1. Look, you got
Hey, how's the guy going to
Go ahead.
Pipe down. I got to get a voice in here in this deal, for God's sakes. Porsches and Corvettes have been racing side by side for years and years and years and years. Each one keeps coming out with variants and improvements and so on. I don't mind that they used the ZR1X or ZR1, excuse me, against the GT3. And it outperformed it. It did in that video. I believe all that. That price difference is fantastic. There's a big difference, but there's always been a big difference. People still want the Porsche more, by and large. So when the GT2 RS comes out, I think it's going to
be $1 million.
I know. Okay, but Tim, let me ask you a question. Let's just say the Corvette, the ZR1 was the same price as the GT3. Just say that they were the same price. Even though the Corvette is better dynamically on a track, which do you think people will buy? If they were literally the same price?
We're old farts. Let's just admit it. Our cumulative age is like 160, right? So, but
yeah, we're like a tortoise.
Exactly. I don't think the younger generation, and I know you're going to argue with me, but I do think it's true. I think they're falling in love with the Corvette more than Porsches, more than even Ferraris or Lamborghinis. This younger generation, if you're to believe the Instas, if you're to believe, look, okay, so let's assume there's somebody on this listening or watching us right now that's younger than, say, 40. What do you guys think? Chime in here. What are you seeing happens with Corvette? Are you carrying around your biases against it, that are rightfully earned, if you ask me? Or are you actually, or do you not necessarily see the New Balance shoes and the, all the other, things that Paul likes to
see, ask my wife. She'll give you an earful about
but
Corvette.
She's your age, bro.
I don't know. It's hard for me to get out my bias, but then when I also, like, we were at a Cars and Coffee this weekend, and there was like 8 or 9 brand new Corvettes, no ZR1, but Z06s and all that. And we're looking at them and we're like, it's almost like the first draft of a Ferrari 296 that really didn't make the cut. And then you're like looking at like, this could, like, a 296 is so pretty. And they bench it off? What did they bench the car off, the 488 or something? Or which Ferrari did they bench?
It's an all new chassis. It's an all new car.
No, not the ZR1, but the Z06. No, wasn't it benched?
458.
458. Yeah. So, and it's
like the Z06, but that was
the Z06. There wasn't ZR. There were Z06s there, and I'm sitting there looking at it, like, they started off right, and it's like these angles and designs, and the problem I have with Corvette, and they've already, since the C8's been out, it's already starting to do this. It just doesn't age well. It just starts, it's like, I always equivalent to like Wrigley's gum. Like, the first time you chew it, like, wow, this is awesome. And within 10 seconds, you're like, get that shit out of my mouth. It's just like chewing on tar. And that's how I've always felt about Corvette design.
We're driving things that look like glorified bugs, bro.
I know, but I've never argued the fact that Corvettes have democratized speed and performance. And for years, every, track days, even the C5 era, you could get a C5, brand new at the time in the early 2000s, go out to the track and be competitive. Whereas if you bought a BMW, you definitely had to do a shit ton of work. If you bought a Porsche, you had to do some work. And the cost of running was 2, 3, 4x. There's no question that they were the value buy. But the end of the day, I
don't think that's the USP now. I don't think it's the USP now, because you don't hear anyone complaining about the interiors of the new cars, the new C8s. They got their interior. Exactly. The design is subjective. I personally like it. I think it looks fantastic.
They got to do a square steering wheel to get fat old guys like me in the car. So I get it.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what? No, let's move on. How about that?
All right.
And Paul, thanks.
We'll agree to disagree.
Thanks. Well, listen, guys, in the comments, what do you think? I mean, you don't worry about Paul's feelings. Hurt his feelings. Tell him how he's wrong and how the new C8 changes all the rules, or tell me I'm wrong. It doesn't matter. Let's have some fun. Comments, please. All right. Dave, why don't you go next? I think the world's done here. And Paul.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna I'm keeping it going again. Just gonna don't have a good picture of it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
but I think that you will be able to buy. You won't necessarily get delivered. So I'm cheating a little bit. But later this year, you're going to be able to start ordering the GT2 RS. So I'm kind of excited about this car. Right. I mean, I think it's going to be, it's going to propel Porsche right back to the pinnacle again. 700 plus horsepower. Likely conservatively rated, electric turbo assist. Styling wise, it'll probably be similar to this variant, meaning that if you looked at a 991.2 GT3 versus a 991.2 GT2 RS, bigger scoops on the front and some minor styling differences, but those cars do still look remarkably similar. I think it's going to be a phenomenal car. It's probably going to have a sticker over 500 grand or something like that.
Will
Who
that
knows?
even
But it's just
matter?
going to no, it won't, because the people that can afford it, right? And they'll sell every single one that they can make. There's no question that they will sell every single one that they will make. So I think that's a car I'm certainly looking forward to this year as well. Now, here's one. This is going to be way off the reservation for you guys, but I'm also thinking this is going to be a cool little machine. This this is the Slate pickup for those of you who haven't. This electric, Paul, I know, and I bet you're going to see these babies running all around California. I'm certain of it.
Well, I
And
think
I
I think
think,
the problem with those is by time they actually come to market, where the price tag is going to be, I think the Maverick's going to be more appealing. There's going to be some other cars that are more appealing. That whole car was the Slate, which is an Amazon product, was really on the basis, and this is where they kind of got screwed, that there would be a tax credit and really keep this truck under 30 grand. And I think there's no way. And I think they're going to have too much competition for cars that honestly are better.
you mean ICE cars,
Yeah, I
Maverick
mean,
and
I
those
would
kinds of
love to
cars,
see
Ranger.
Nissan come back with a new version of the hardbody to compete with the Maverick. That would be really rad. Go back to these little small pickups. I just think that the only competitive advantage the Slate had was price, and that is pretty much gone.
Well, and buying it
Yeah,
directly from Amazon too. Honestly, their
well,
method of yeah.
there's something about this sort of little mini cute little car though. This and you can reconfigure it into a 5-seat SUV at the same time. I think that the idea that you wrap it, you don't paint it,
Who's
you
the buyer, David?
customize it.
Who's the buyer?
It's probably somebody in there, it's a late 20s, it's a, millennial type as well. I think that's kind of the buyer for this car. It's not a guy like me. Um, but I think it's going to do well. I like this little car. I think it's cool.
What I like about it isn't the car itself, is that it might push other manufacturers to compete against it. I think they'll get killed in the market, but you sometimes need that kind of competition to get the static companies. I thought the Maverick would force all the manufacturers to make cool pickups, and really the Maverick's sort of sitting by itself. And maybe this will open up a new truck where people aren't driving F350s around by themselves and commuting in them, and they're driving cool little pickup trucks that are useful.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a law that recently changed that made those little mini pickup trucks legal again? Wasn't there some sort of
Well, that was
doc
K
thing?
trucks.
That
That was
Oh, right.
that was Trump just talking about it, and I'm not sure whether or not that's happened or not, or there's been, anything about that. But
and
they're still not manufactured here.
you're not taking a K truck on the freeway. I mean
No, but
that's
do people even care about electric cars now that we own the largest that we own Venezuela and has the largest oil reserve on planet Earth?
I think people care. I think what happens in urban areas, if you're commuting, they are take out the fuel economy and any of that. I just think they are really nice things to be in if you're stuck in traffic commuting.
Yeah.
That's where their value is. And in urban areas, any big metropolitan area, they make sense. Outside of that, I don't think they're ever going to have a strong foothold, at least not in the near future.
All right.
Yeah,
So in
the
case you
cheapo version of this thing has only about 150-mile range as well. So that's small. You have to buy the bigger battery and whatnot, which is going to bump the price up as well. I just
well,
think the idea of the customization, people love this idea of mass customization. Check out their website, look at it. I think it's kind of cool. So we'll see what
I
happens.
think that product's less about the product itself and more about the ease of buying it and the ease of paying for it. So if Amazon makes it so that it's easily accessible and obtainable, then it'll be a success. If they try to sell it on the merits of the actual product, it won't be a success. And given Amazon how they go about selling stuff, that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to make it painless, and everyone's going to, and it'll make it so that that'll be the easy. Oh, I'm buying some diapers, and my, kid needs a new car. Click, add to cart, and then it shows up in 2 weeks.
Amazon Prime.
Yeah, exactly. Amazon Prime. That's how they're going to do it. I would if I had,
Yeah.
Bezos's
I mean, that's
distribution.
you're right, Tim. That's their competitive advantage.
For
That's
sure.
for sure.
All right, so you are up next, and just to
Well-
remind everyone, this is new for 2026 cars we're excited about.
Well,
Apparently
okay,
it's
so
not.
so here's the thing: is there are some exciting cars you listed, like the Toyota GR Corolla and stuff. Those are all cars that
But save,
exist.
save this for the next segment.
No, I know. I just don't have a picture because this whole subject it irritated me because there are some good cars like the Toyota BRZ, the BRZ, or the Subaru version, the Corolla GR Corolla. There are some cool products out there, but they're not necessarily new. The one new car that I would have been really excited is if Nissan really said we're going to make a manual Nismo Z. That, which I thought by now they would realize, hey, this is going to sell. This is going to help Nissan, which is on life support. I love the Toyota MR2. I just don't see that. I think we're still too far away from that being in production for in 26 as a 27 model, even that. The Toyota thing we talked about last week with the V8, that's really cool. I don't know about that. So when I went into AI and just said, "Hey, what's new?" It just vomited SUV, electric vehicles. I just looked at it and I was like, it is so freaking boring. So then I was like, okay, well, give me fun enthusiast cars, something that I want to buy. Honest to God. And I kept on drilling down like, no, 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 better enthusiast cars. Here's what it gave me is the new for 26 enthusiast cars. Ferrari EV SUV. I
Oh
mean,
man, you got to tell.
I
No,
just want to
these.
commit. I just want to commit Harry Carey.
Those are going to be
Toyota GR.
500 grand. Those things are going to be 500 grand.
Oh my
That will be
God.
Who
the
the hell's going to
fastest.
buy them?
That will be the fastest. Well, people that are coerced into buying them because they want to get on the list to buy the special Ferrari. You watch. That'll be the fastest depreciating car in the history. Faster than a Pinto. Faster than anything else.
It'll be
Anyway.
like that in the Cadillac Celica or whatever. They'll be like
Totally.
fighting
Yeah.
this down. It'll be like Pinewood Derby downhill racing to
Totally.
bottom depreciation. So the next one was the Toyota GR GT Lexus LFA thing we talked about. That is actually the only viable competitor. And then this just actually made me sad. Porsche 718 EV variant. Because for next year, now Porsche has already stepped it back and they're going to make ICE gas powered
Mhm.
718 Boxers and Caymans. But for next model year, they're not ready to produce those. So the only thing you're going to get for that model year is EV. And that to me, when I read those, it's kind of sad that nothing new for 26 or even 27 model year being sold in 26 is that interesting. And to me, which we'll talk about in the next subject, the only thing interesting, and it's like almost like watching this lottery that we know what's going to happen, is each year the 25-year rule. We're like, okay, like we already know for next year what's coming in 22.
Don't tee up
And
segment for yet, but I want to
I
say
know
just something to what you were just saying. So I know you guys aren't Formula One fans, but I'll say this for those who are. The new
I
Formula
am. I forget to watch.
Okay, well, so
I'll
the
do
new
I'll do Drive to Survive and I'll catch up.
do you know the new in 2026 there's an all new car and the car is physically smaller and has a new power plant. I hate they call it a power plant. And what's interesting is half the horsepower has to come from the electric motor and the other half obviously comes from a tiny little six-cylinder, probably like a 1.6 or 7 or 8 little six-cylinder with turbochargers and the rest of it. But here's what I thought was interesting. Every single Formula One team has to run synthetic fuel. And one race just to fill the tank with synthetic fuel is $20,000. Now, that's an interesting point. But what I thought was really fascinating is Formula One traditionally has been the leading edge of what automotive is gravitating towards stylistically, colors, of exterior colors of cars technologically. So Ferrari and all the other manufacturers are now going to be putting emphasis behind making hybrids that are going to be using synthetic fuel. That goes to the premise that I had a long time ago that the whole EV thing is going to be replaced by effectively a hybrid, and the all-electric cars don't really have their place if they can make synthetic fuel so that it's obtainable and you can go to your local, the same distribution is already in place and you can put synthetic fuel in and it burns clean. I don't see how there's going to be a lot of big market for EV cars, full electric.
But do you think what they're going to do is they're going to be not plug-in EV traditionally, but the wheels will be powered by electric motors with a gas generating
Generator.
power plant that
I think they're going to
is
be plug-in. They're
run
more
off
efficient.
of synthetic fuel.
I think the plug-in is more efficient. You can put a bigger battery in it, all kinds of other advantages to it. And you again, look to see what the leading manufacturers are doing. Their plug-ins. Like on a
Yeah.
Ferrari, when I drive a Ferrari, if you put it in, there's like 4 settings on the Manantino. If you put it in, I think it's not race, but the one right before that, um, the EV motor gets actually powered by the gas motor if you're driving it hard, but if you put it in one of the lighter settings, it drains the battery. So that's what and the bias against hybrid cars, I already see going away. And when Formula One, especially now that Formula One's going to be on Apple and it's not going to be some sort of hard to stream type deal, everyone's going to be able to watch it if they have an Apple TV subscription. And if EVs become the thing, you're going to, in my opinion, that's the direction forward. Do you have any opinion on all my rambling there, David?
I mean, I don't know that in and of itself is going to move the needle enough in general. I mean, as far as just F1 and so on. But um, Paul,
I,
chime in
I
because
mean, I
I don't
like your
have a big opinion on this
hypothesis
one.
that, and it is, if you go on past history, Formula One has been the tip of the spear for technology that ends up trickling into cars. I mean, we still don't have DRS on cars,
Well, we do. We
or
do.
I guess we do. The GT3. Actually, on that video,
Sure
you're right with
does.
Jason Camise was showing how the wing would open and close.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think there is that chance. I'm curious to see how successful that system is, how it's going to generate, and maybe they're calling it a power plant because they realize it's not going to be an engine powering the wheels. It's going to be a power supply to charge the battery to power the wheels.
No,
I don't know what it's
they're
going to
just
be.
trying to be fancy and not call it an engine or whatever. And by the way, DRS is illegal on F. They're not. It's
I
against the
saw
rule
that.
in 2026. Isn't that funny?
That
So
is, I mean, here's what I think is that was such a valuable part of making F1 sort of interesting with passing. And I wonder if halfway through the season they're like, ooh, gosh, that that
what would happen to the world if all of a sudden Formula One said, you know what, enough with this nanny state green crap. Wait, let's go back to V10s.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Like with giant wings, early 90s,
Totally.
massive
Art
tires.
and
Yeah.
Senna, Michael Schumacher when he was cutting
Yeah.
his teeth.
And
Yeah.
the mortality rate would go up.
Well, the hearing of all the spectators would go down.
Yep.
Segment four, New Year is here. What cool cars can we now import that they just reached because they just reached the ripe old age of 25. So, like you, David, the ripe old age of 25. What are your favorites?
I'm way past the ripe old age of 25. I'll tell you that. A smorgasbord of stuff here, starting with this roof RTurbo, which I think we're talking 2001. I never really knew much about this car. Paul probably knows more about this particular car than I do. I think it was had three different variants, 500 to 525 horsepower, obviously turbocharged, all the roof goodies, including their wheels and styling. But these are not cheap pieces. They didn't build a lot of them. I mean, I don't even know. I think the number's probably well under 100 of these that they ever built. So I've seen auctions and so on where this car's going to $400,000 plus dollars for one of these.
Well, when the
Paul, you got any
U.S. market
comments here on this one?
Well, when the US market opens up to cars that like what you're pointing out now, but are you sure that wasn't importable in the United States prior? Because I think it was.
No.
It
Well,
wasn't?
well, when there was RAF, in Texas, which was Roof's first like US or one of the early
Dallas.
US,
Yeah.
and then it's no longer, yeah, in Dallas, it's no longer part of it. You could essentially buy some of the parts, but really EPA wasn't allowing you to bring that car in, which you could tell. The cool part was on the top of the fenders. So remember 996 turbos had that big scoop in front of the rear
Yeah.
wheel.
Yeah.
And it didn't look very elegant. It was just kind of a
Mm-hmm.
cutout with a plastic insert. Here they made on the top this cool scoop, and that I thought was the neatest feature. And the wild thing is, like Dave said, I think people have been already trickling them in, even though before, and they're on a Canadian plate or whatever it is, but they're already definitely $400,000 cars. But I think in early pandemic, they were like half of that, if not
Yep.
less,
Mm-hmm.
and not
Well,
Right.
selling.
the
And I remember
20
telling my dad, I go, I think these are good deals.
soon as the US opens up with this 25-year thing, it's like 2 or 3 years before that, those cars start to go up in value. So if
Yep.
you want to know, if you want to make money on cars, those would be the ones to buy. And you can import them and just stick them in a warehouse and just, basically maybe hit the home run on that. You have a couple other, I have no idea what this Renault thing is, David.
Well,
Oh,
I'll go with the
it's
Renault
cool.
first then. This is,
Oh my God.
I knew nothing about this damn thing either. It was like I just did a
So
lookup and what can
French.
I import now? Yes, very French. You would get your photo shot at every single gas station you ever stopped at.
Or
It's
just
a
shot.
two-door, it's called an Aventime, I think is what the name of this is. Obviously 2001. It is some sort of combo of two-door SUV, five-passenger vehicle.
Can we move past this
Um,
one, please? Let's go to the next one.
I mean, the only thing cool about that is, and that's like a legacy car that they keep doing modern versions, and they're always these city runabouts weird. And I think way back in the day, I think it was Renault. They took the predecessor back in the '80s was called a Space, and they basically put a full F1 underside. It was an F1 car that looked like that, and it was hilarious. It running laps on the Nürburgring. I mean, picture like you're talking about V10 turbo, old school F1 in a minivan.
Paul,
But
you are
yeah,
winning the game on weird nerd knowledge off the charts
That
today.
is,
That's
and
the
he
second.
does, which is wonderful. You guys took all the good stuff though. By the
No,
time
no,
I
that's
got to
cool.
pick all this stuff,
Well, let me ask
now
you guys:
this
have you guys driven a modern French car, like a modernish French car built in the last 20 years? Have you guys driven one?
nope,
no, I had an
I have
R5
not.
Turbo, but that was
Okay, it's a
80.
mixture between a Korean car and and a Cadillac from the late 80s. That's what they feel like.
Yeah.
They are
Oh,
awful.
they are
Aside from the
garbage.
Alpine.
Yes. Boy, that would be. And by the way, just going back to the last 26, the only thing I saw that was halfway interesting is Alpine is looking at bringing a little electric SUV into the US market. That sounds horrible. But the silver lining behind that is if they got their foot in the door with this stupid little SUV, what that might mean is an A3, an A110 or 310. What is the sports car?
You got it right.
Yeah, that comes in the back door. Now I know it would need a massive redesign, but that was like the only glimmer of hope of 26 was a stupid electric SUV that would open the foot wide enough to get a cool car in maybe in a couple years.
Did you notice that the Alpine and that Caterham that I pointed out earlier look very similar, especially from the back three quarters? Have you
Yep.
guys seen one of those Alpine A310s or whatever they are? Have you seen one?
Yeah.
Have you seen one, David?
Not.
It
They're
has.
they're they're cool.
They are. It has shockingly good road presence. Like I was totally surprised. It didn't
They're
look
they're they're they don't look as dinky as a Lotus
no
Elise or a Miata.
beautiful.
They look like a compact Cayman. They're
Yeah,
like a tighter fitting Cayman. I know the journalist had one in California running around. I think it was a customer's car. They all got to drive it. I saw them in Germany. And here's the irony is several Porsche designers and engineers bought those to car. Like they could get corporate leases and they bought those to drive around.
that is amazing. All right, so this next one I actually really like too. So this is really cool. It's
Very cool. Beetle, new but now 25 years old. This is obviously a Beetle RSI. Has a six-cylinder, which I have no idea how they jammed a six-cylinder
DR6, right?
motor in this thing. Yeah,
DR6.
Yeah.
yeah. AR6 in under the hood there, six-speed manual. I mean, I like the styling. I always liked that second version of the new Beetle where they squatted up the top of it a little bit and made this car a little bit more interesting to look at. Um, Kind of dig the little spoiler on the back of it myself, but this was an all-wheel drive car as well. So neat little machine. I couldn't even begin to tell you value. I don't know, maybe somebody looked it up, but it can't be a ton of money. And I bet you it's a lot of bang for the buck if you were to buy one of these and bring this car in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
250. That's all they made, though.
I
That's
mean,
all they ever made of it.
I think some of the US market turbo ones we got towards the end of the production,
Yeah.
they're too new to be interesting collectible and they have this sort of teenage girl stigma attached to these cars that hasn't left.
That's the
But I
reason
think
Dave liked it.
yeah,
Yeah.
but like I
Exactly.
think down the road, I think they'll have like a weird cult following, you know, like the Scirocco's and stuff. No, I do because they are actually interesting to drive, and when you do get them set up to look like a performance car,
Who's going to buy that over a GTI from the same era?
Dave.
Nobody. Dave. No, he won't. He
I
won't.
like the GTI.
By the
Well,
way,
listen, what
my wife had one of those bug convertible things. Worst car ever.
Oh, they are.
those were terrible. Those are plastic pieces of crap that just
Yep.
broke.
And
The
they're
number of
so
those that I've
slow.
just those were terrible cars. This car just feels like it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
it would.
I
It
just
would be
think it's
different. But
yeah,
people in
yeah.
America would look at you like you are some sort of like I don't know necessarily give a rat's ass what people think when I'm driving a specific car. Look at my collection, you'll see that I'm telling the truth. But if you're scooting around town in something that looks like a hotted up bug that's about 25 years old, I don't know what kind of attention you're going to be attracting. Paul, that would be
Well, it's
good.
not
That would be
about
good in
that.
your market, Paul. You could rock that.
I'm going to Laguna Beach with a Shih Tzu on my passenger seat.
That is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I'm
Let's
good.
go. Let's go.
Let's
Let's
go.
have some fun.
All
You
right,
know,
Paul.
You're not
paint
going to
paint
get
it
noticed
pink,
because
and
nobody's going to
I
know
am
what it
proud of
is.
my.
It's a little
Anyway,
sleeper, you know.
All right, Paul,
Somebody
you
will
go
think that I
next.
so
yeah.
as we mentioned
Good ones,
before,
Dave.
26 new cars that were interesting. That was an oxymoron because what was really interesting is 2021 or 2001, 25-year rule. Here they come. And although dynamically these never did well. I mean, I had a Renault R5 Turbo too, an 80s car. This was Group B homologation. They just stopped making it. And then back in the early 2000s, they came out with a Clio V6, which was really, I mean, you got to remember late 90s, early 2000s. Remember, everyone was doing these heritage cars, resto mods, the Prowler, other cars that were harking back, the new Beetle. And I think the Renault Clio V6 was probably the best iteration. So cool looking. I mean, this
Yeah,
was one for sale.
just like an R5, just a
There's one
They
of
were
modern
the,
like an
there's,
R5.
R5.
there's one of those for
Yeah.
sale in Puerto Rico. Actually, my friend's got it for sale.
So sadly, in the automotive review world, in period, they didn't do well. Short wheelbase, top heavy. They were 600 pounds heavier than the base Econo box. I didn't even put a picture of the interior because going back to what you said about Cadillac, and I mean, they're just the interiors they look like they're made by French play school kiddie company. They're just garbage. Which, by the way, the R5 Turbo I had, it was a
That the same,
Lactar inside.
exactly the same, exactly.
But when
Shitty
cars get
plastic.
to be a certain age, their lack of performance dynamics get forgiven. I mean, look at the Alpha 4C. It's cool now. It got trashed when it was a new car because it was shitty at everything compared to its competitors. Now it's just a beautiful car. And I think these are fun. I've only seen one in person. My neighbor back in 2008 had one in the US. I still don't know how. And I haven't seen it, but I know he has it. And I said, please, if I ever get a chance to drive it, it'll probably be Don't Meet Your Heroes because it'll probably suck. But I don't care. It looks so cool. I would love to take this on a rally. But the car, and so just to get an idea, this silver one here sold on collecting cars. It was a Spanish car, so it was left-hand drive. I was looking, a lot of them were right-hand drive. This one sold in January of last year. There's not many of them. They don't sell very often. It only had 6,000 miles. So it was collector grade. And good thing it had 6,000 miles because I think with 10,000 miles, the interior would look like garbage. I think they just don't wear well. Sold for $56,000 in Spain. I don't know
Kramer,
in the
of
US.
all of our
Respectable number.
of all of our folks listening right now, exactly how many do you think are still interested in a Renault Clio V6 Phase One from 2001? Yes, exactly. Let's move on.
I'm doing this for me, not them.
I know exactly.
But
It's all about you.
But to tell you the truth, the car that really interests me, because my first new car was a Acura Integra in '87. And I've always loved, I mean, I'm not a big front wheel drive car, but if there is a car that nails front wheel drive, it's the Integra Type R. I guess the first Integra Type R was the third generation Integra. They're here in the US. Really nice ones are collectible. They sell for 50 grand on up. And then after that, we didn't get it. And what was cool about this was we did get the Integra RSX, and the RSX was actually a very pretty design, arguably prettier than the previous generation. And they did do a Type R for the rest of the world. I think, and we go back and forth of right-hand drive, left-hand drive. Skylines do really well because they only came right-hand drive. Like there was no left-hand drive variant. With these, what they call it, fourth gen Type R, they only came right-hand drive, and they were mostly in like New Zealand, Australia, even UK. I don't think got very many, if any, at
So
all.
you wouldn't mind driving a right-hand drive car?
No, I've driven right-hand drives. We've sold a couple Skylines. The hardest thing about right-hand, first of all, you think it's hard to do the shifter. That actually comes as second nature. I would say the initial thing is staying in the center of the lane. That's a little awkward. You find yourself kind of like on the curb, like you're delivering mail. But once you get past that, I would say the hardest part is if you're going to turn left on an uncontrolled intersection and there's a car in front of you, or God forbid, you're going to pass someone on a country road, you actually need a passenger because you can't see. Imagine being behind an 18-wheeler.
Would you drive a right-hand drive car? Would you buy a right-hand drive car, David?
I would. For
Yeah,
the
I
right
totally
car.
would.
Right
No
car.
way.
Yeah, I would.
No,
I
I
don't
think
think
a
that's
real car. If you're a real car guy, you'll drive a right-hand drive car.
I knew you were going to say that.
And so what's cool about the Integra Type R, this generation Integra Type R, is some of the downsides. It's got that beautiful, almost 9,000 RPM revving motor.
Well, stop there. Stop there. Do you know the difference between the motor in that car versus the normal Integra? That one in particular that you're showing, do you realize that those motors were built to basically race specs?
Yeah,
So that's
they're
what made them
forged in
super.
turtles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Totally. That's what makes
It
that. And you can still, supposedly, the Jap tuner guys will know better than me. But the motors on those cars, you can still buy new from Honda or have them, I don't know, some access to
I
them.
don't know, but that was the cool about it is I mean this was really F1 technology ending up in a road car, which
Yep.
made them so dominant. And really the downside of the Integra Type R that we got was it was a 1.8 liter. It was low on torque. This was a 2 liter. The torque went up, which I think made it more interesting. Cool interior. All the reviews I could find, it just they raved about it. And now, granted, I was translating Japanese reviews into English, so who knows? But to give an example, I found one. Have you guys looked at Japanese used car like
Yeah.
dealers like me and Dave? Have you looked at their listings for cars
I
in
try not
Japan?
to.
They're kind of funny. So this was one on some Japanese website for sale. Uh, I wanted to compare it to the Clio. It was a 6,000 mile car in Japan, a 2002 model year. They came out in 2001, but I think they called them 2002s. And it was listed for $29,000 for sale. I mean, I don't know. Once you import it, tariffs, shipping, let's just say you're in $45,000. A 6,000 mile US Integra Type R right now is probably over 100 grand. And
But
and
you're saying of your choices, I know these are interesting cars for you guys. You guys chose cars you thought would be interesting, but would you buy any of the cars you guys are
I
actually
would I
talking
would
about?
buy this in the
David,
Clio.
would you buy any of yours that you suggested?
I would again, it's all a function of price. I'm sure not buying the Aventime, but
So would you buy the roof you would
should I
buy,
buy
I'm
the
sure.
Beetle? Sure. At the
I
right
would
price, I would buy
I
the
would
Beetle.
buy
Sure.
Dave's roof and I'd buy this Integra. I mean, this
Okay, I got you
Integra
guys both
would be a
beat.
blast.
I got you guys both beat. All right. First of all, a
The
GT3,
Corvette.
no, 996 GT3 RS.
That's a
Finally,
good choice.
25 years
Okay.
old. I don't even need to go past that. So those cars in particular, I think are massively underpriced. Don't make sense to me. The last analog feeling 911, all the things. Awesome car. I don't know what those prices are going for right now. I haven't checked. The next would be a Ferrari 550 Barchetta. This would be with manual transmission, and those are very limited edition cars. They made less than 550 of them. And the last one I put up, I don't know, I've seen one of these at an auction, is the Porsche 911, again, in 996, the Carrera 4 lightweight club sport variants. Have you guys seen one of those before? I think they're all white and they hardly made any of them. So it's basically like an RS, but it's got a wide body and it's all-wheel drive. So those would be my three choices.
So the GT3 RS is a great choice. Now that is a collectible car,
Mhm.
similar to like even if you like compare it to later 997.2 GT3 and GT3 RS. There's a huge difference in value. From a performance standpoint, it's mild, super mild. In fact, if anything, the RS variant is just more annoying to drive on the street.
You've
And
driven
it's just
one? Do you know from experience?
99. I haven't driven a 996 GT3 RS. I've driven a 997.1 and point 0.2 GT3 RS.
I agree
And
with what you just said.
and when you look at what the 996.2 GT3 RS is, we're talking same engine, subtle difference, a little less weight. I think it's going to follow along the same ilk where I think it's a cool collectible and you never see them. I think as a driving, like, oh my God, driving difference, is it going to be worth 2x? And by the way, look at the market of just cars that recently sold. P car market had a 10,000 mile one in Florida that sold for 290. And by the way, they came white with red or white with blue. That was it. I think, let me see, I just lost the page. I think they're selling now for a collect. And by the way, they all have very few miles. Here's a 41,000 mile one that Friedman's asking 269 and it's not exactly moving.
Is this a
40
US build, Paul? US
These are
builds or
all
this?
they're already here in the US.
Well, so what would be the ones in Japan? How much are the ones in France? How much are the ones in Belgium?
Let's
Less.
see. There was one. Here's one in Netherlands, 24,000 miles. It was the last asking price, which is in September, was 310. Here's a Paris French one. Oh, it just says for sale. It's actually at Goodings Christie, RM Sotheby one. Here's another Netherlands one with 24,000 miles for 306. Let me see if I can find any. Here's a UK one that actually sold with 16,000 miles for $139,000 on, and that was 8 months ago. I don't know. Maybe right-hand drive. No
I
one
think,
wants a right-hand
Paul,
drive.
I think one with miles that's not a garage queen, like the first half of the ones you mentioned, will probably sell for what a GT3 non-RS 996 is selling for in the United States now.
Here's a good example. Here's one that sold 10 months ago. It was on Bring a Trailer, but it was in Germany. It was a German delivered car. It had 29,000 miles. GT3 RS Club Sport, and it
Mm.
sold for 200,000.
That seems like a really that's a shit ton of money,
But
but that
but
seems
here's
like a
the
good
interesting.
one.
That was 10 months ago, but when you zip forward to like 4 months ago, that number has already grown by like 80,000. I think to the point being is I think it might have already.
It's the importability that's what's running them up. Like I
Yep.
said at the top, that same
They're
thing
at the
happened on nine.
threshold.
Exactly, that happened. Same thing happened on 964 RSs. You could buy those in Europe forever, but you couldn't import them. And as soon as they became in the window, then the values went through the roof.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So you guys have time for another segment?
Sure.
All
Well, see,
right,
do you want
David.
to skip this? Do you want to skip and do the listeners, or do you want to do number five here?
Um, you
I'd
know what?
rather do
What do
five.
you want to do
You'd
five?
rather
Okay.
do five?
Winners.
Okay.
Well, so we have choice of we could talk about winners or losers, or
Or we could talk about Chinese import bodies.
I prefer not. I mean, I don't know.
That's kind of why I like it.
Go for it. I
Because
don't
I'm not
care.
Well, we talked about it in the
whatever.
last show. Let's hope. Well, you know what? I want to do this question because he actually asked it, and I told him I'd read his question.
Okay,
David, do you have that handy? You can read it, or do you feel
I do. Yes,
okay?
it's whether or not it's a it's tough to read as a question. It's more of a comment here.
But let me just preface this. If you guys have any
Okay.
questions or comments, we read everything. Um, we really value what you guys have to say. More of this, less of that. Anything that you can think of that you want us focusing more on. And I also remind you, all of you, make sure you're subscribed to the newsletter, fullthrottletalk.com. And we are looking for contributors. We've got some really, people that are, you don't even have to be the world's greatest writer. Who cares if you don't have a writing background? If you have a passion for the types of things that we do, or maybe you've got something that we maybe should know about, send the article in. You can message me down below. My contacts are down below, or the easy button is just to drop it on Instagram and say, hey, look, I've got an article on, some weird thing you guys haven't yammered on about, and let's see if it's a good fit. Chances are I'll say yeah, because we love it. And we love all things automotive. So David, go ahead.
I think we debated this on our WhatsApp chat versus here on the show, but and I
Ah,
think Tim, you might have pushed out a newsletter piece on it as well. But this is the concept of the folks having making repop bodies, complete chassis on 911s over in China and importing them here. So this particular question or comment, interesting discussion. And first I've heard of this. Are they making both short wheelbase and long wheelbase versions?
yes,
First question. Okay. So I know, Tim, you've had some back and forth with these guys as well.
I have.
One thing I didn't mention, C mentioned, forgive me if somehow I missed it, was an assessment of the quality of these new bodies. I think this is what determined viability of this option. And he goes on, I'm not going to read the entire piece here. He goes on to talk about some repop parts and things like that that didn't fit quite right and had to get some OEM parts. But a few flaws that would kill an aftermarket body. Do the holes meet up properly with the rear suspension spring plates, for instance, and on and on? So then great. If not, then you may be looking at significant costs, which you do not anticipate. So he's basically making the argument, and I'm kind of in the same place here, and this falls into the category of would you buy one of these import bodies and use it as opposed to trying to resurrect your existing long wheelbase, short wheelbase, long hood 911 that's all rusted out using parts from Dansk or restoration design. And at the time that Tim was discussing this, I couldn't figure out if he was trying to put me out of business in the restoration of Porsches here in the U.S.
I
But
think it's just the opposite. It'll make the
I
car.
agree.
Yeah, it's just the opposite. It's just
I don't
like
like it. I don't like it, but it won't put you out of business, Dave. It'll
uh-uh.
help you.
It'll help you 100% because you're going to be able to. It's like when I was restoring our 67S and Paul was restoring his little project car. Every single freaking panel in that car had to be touched. And if I could have bought a replacement body and I think the guy's name was Dave Yarzy, right? Is that
it's not in the notes that you posted. I
oh,
don't if that's whose name.
I
It
want to get
wasn't
his
in the
name
notes
right
that you
because I
posted.
want to acknowledge the
Sure.
fact. Yeah, David Yersley. Don't you know him, Paul?
Maybe. I
Yeah,
don't know.
probably.
It's like, hello, my name is, and I need a picture of your car, and then
Well,
I'll know
Yeah,
who you are.
yeah,
totally.
precisely.
But he did say this. I don't know if you caught this. And Paul, I think you'll remember this. He said, I did find this, by the way, on Pelican Parts this week at Frankfurt. Anyway, there was a company, it was Dansk, that was making 911 reproduction cells. Do you remember, Paul? This was probably over 10 years ago. It was at the Porsche swap meet or lit meet. I have something, I don't remember the details, but there was actually an entirely new, made in West Germany, 911 body. Didn't have the exterior panels, but the chassis was there, that they were sort of like saying this is going to be for sale soon. Do you remember that? I don't know what happened with
I
that.
kind of do,
Didn't happen though.
and I wonder if enough of us old codgers just sort of like complained enough at
Poo-pooed it.
like the heresy of it, and they decided to shelf that project.
Yeah, because it didn't
'Cause,
happen. It never happened.
Well,
Tim, I
but
mean,
this is,
you say
go ahead.
that if you say that, oh, if back then, because you had to touch every single panel, you would have been loved to have just bought a new body. But it's like a 67S. Do you really think, even though that would be maybe better in every way from a cost and finished product, you would be willing to go down? I mean, think about the Porsche nerds. They freak out if the transmission
But
numbers rubbed
what if it
off.
was indistinguishable? Like he's talking, you have to buy
You'd have
replacement
to
fenders.
disclose it. Like, can you imagine trying to run that on Bring a Trailer?
Yeah,
Like,
you're not going to
I mean, look,
revin
look
that
at this.
car
Look
with
at the
another
RS
VIN.
listing. They're freaking
Yeah.
out because the guy who hammered the number was a little drunk that day, or whatever it was.
Well, okay, that's a 67S. I value your take on that's right.
I think if you're building a pure hot rod, like you just got, you have a. I mean, my
yeah.
big question is, how does this get a VIN number?
Well,
Like,
you know how. You know how
I
as well
know,
as I do.
but
Well,
like
this
you're going
let's
to
use
sell that. Yeah, you
Yeah,
just take
I
the
mean,
front
if
cowl from a donor car, and then like you sort of grab. I don't know.
not
if
even
you're
a
I want.
just
cow.
doing it
I
for
know if that
yourself,
came up
that's
for
one
me to
thing.
sell, I would be very
Well,
wary as a dealer.
Yeah,
let's
me
listen to what
too.
David's saying. Go ahead, David. You were just saying.
I'm saying, I mean, if you're just building it for yourself, you're not looking at it from, I'm going to build this and then resell it. It might be fantastic. It might be a stiffer chassis now. I'd want to lay my hands and eyes on one. And if what you said, Tim, was accurate, I mean, they were suggesting this thing was 20, 25 grand or something.
Yep,
Uh,
painted with
for
body panels,
painted.
delivered.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, delivered, even with tariff, that would be a question for me I would have, because I would think you'd be seriously into tariff right now, which would jump that price a lot. I
But
mean,
so what is it called? The SB11 or something? The small vehicle thing?
SB 500 or no
Okay.
SB 100 SB 100.
Okay, so that means that a manufacturer like Revology Mustang can use repop bodies. I don't remember the name of the company, but they use repop bodies. They're using that government carve out, and they can make, again, don't remember how many cars per year. It's in the hundreds. And if they keep their total production under that amount of cars, they can essentially sell cars with their own VIN number on it. They don't have to use a chassis from the 1967 Chevy,
Yeah.
must and then weld it on and the rest of it. They can actually
Kirkham
literally,
Cobras were doing that. They were buying
right.
Poland aluminum bodies. And
Okay,
yeah.
but isn't that the issue, right? Because it's the difference between a repop car, a Cobra, or a Super Performance GT40,
Well,
those kinds of things. What
Here,
are you buying? What
but
are you
here's the
making
thing:
them?
is those cars are cars you can't get the original. Like Cobras, original GT40s. Those are like unobtainium.
You
When you're
you
talking
guys keep
about
on you guys keep on picking on these outlier cars. Let's just look at the
no,
basic
but that's
911.
my only thing with that, and I like the idea of it. The problem with the 911 is there's plenty of donor cars,
That's right,
Sure.
plenty of donor
which
cars.
costs an enormous amount of money to bring up to snuff.
They do, but I think that's going to be the argument. Isn't like, hey, do I find a really good SC that's just kind of like tired cosmetically, but a good chassis SC? Let's say you find one for 25 to 30 grand for a good foundation SC that you're going to use as a hot rod where you don't have to go do a lot of body work. You're going to strip it down and repaint it. Do you do that and you haven't, and you can backdate it or do whatever, or do you buy this other thing which
Let me give this flip side to it. So when we were restoring the 67S, John had what do you call it? The graveyard or something, right? And so every time he needed a part for our 67S, he'd go out to this like huge junkyard he had behind his body shop with his welder and weld off some part and patch it onto our car. I mean, the whole thing was a back and forth. But okay, exactly. So how much of my 67S after all of his craftsmanship was actually original to the car? Not a lot. And furthermore, that's a weird car. That's a historical car, arguably. But how many dead cars not worth restoring are there out there that you can, if you had a VIN number, you can legally, I don't know how much of the original car has to be welded into the new chassis, but you can legally do that. And all of a sudden, all these near dead cars that are just piles of rusty shit are all of a sudden being resurrected into road going cars again. That's great for your business, David.
Well, yes and no. Yes and no. I mean, if it turns out production, there's just something about, and there will always be something about having the original car. Whether it's been put back together. I got a 74, a nothing 74 that we're working on in the shop right now that is a rusty pile, and we're having to put in all kinds of new body panels. But at the same time, the guy's willing to spend that money. I don't know if I said to him, "Hey, here's a full tub that you could buy for $50,000."
He can't. He can't buy it yet. But why don't you ask him? See what he says. I don't think younger people care.
I'll come back.
I don't think younger people are going to care.
I think people do. I absolutely think people would care a lot. Personally,
I do,
because I guarantee that no matter what this Chinese company does, it will not be exactly the same.
Well, I mean, yeah, but that's true with any
enough of this stuff to know.
Yeah,
and we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know. I'm not sure I'm willing to throw 20 grand down to test the theory here. So if somebody else out there listening please call me and we'll build one for you. Right?
50-year-old German metal is not more special than brand new Chinese metal. Right? It just isn't. And
I think, yes, maybe as a metallurgy perspective, it's not. I think the perspective of who the person is that's going to spend the money to build it. Sadly, I don't think Gen Z is going to build one of these. That's not your average buyer or the average person who's going to take on a project like this. I think they're a bit older, and I think they're going to be having one eye on future value. And they're like, when I go to list this car and bring a trailer, do I want to tell us this is a Chinese body swap? Or do I want to say this backdate started with a 78 SC or a 74 Carrera? And I think the value on the resale, and sadly, I wish people just built cars for them the way they wanted to, but they build them because they ask me, like, I'm building this, what is future value? They're worried about the exit strategy before they've even started the project.
You really think there's no future in with the long hoods, for example, Paul, if that's the only market, because there's just not enough of us left that are going to
this future is going to be the hot rod part of the 911 market, kind of like what Rod Emery did with the 356s. Now, the difference to this is, like when we talk about Dansk and building reproduction stuff, and I know he talked about the OEM muffler. Do you know almost all these classic parts that are Porsche parts, they're made by Dansk. They're made by other people. And go buy a fender from Porsche and see how well that fits on the car. It doesn't. So
stamped over in Taiwan too.
I can picture. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I can picture now Porsche going, oh hey, why don't we just connect with this Chinese company? We'll buy their chassis.
Oh my gosh.
Sell their
That's what they're going to do.
Even if
Porsche put it out, totally different story, right?
Well, see, but this is all branding bullshit then, guys. I'm sorry. I agree. I'm really lost on this.
I agree. It's bullshit. But at the end of the day, imagine the consumer, even if they know it's a Chinese rebranded thing being sold by Porsche, they would pay that premium just to say, hey, I got a Porsche from Porsche chassis, even if they know where it really came from. But going back to, here's the question. They kind of did a test this. Porsche came out with a new magnesium case. The case that no one wanted in the first place.
Oh, it was a 7R case, right?
The 7R case that's new from Porsche. I've already talked to mechanics that have been building engines. They're crap. They don't like them because they're not made by Porsche. They're made by someone else, and they're not.
They're crap in what way?
They're not the quality. First of all, magnesium cases weren't great to begin with. There was a reason why they lived such a short life. And everyone goes, hey, if you're going to build a cool hot rod, do it on an aluminum case. But then, okay, Porsche has a chance to sell you this new version that maybe will make your car that's valuable numbers matching now in whatever weird way, numbers match.
But you guys keep on leaning into the same, you're supplying your own set of facts to this conversation, which really isn't doing the conversation justice. You keep on saying, both of you guys, and you guys are definitely ganging up on me today, which is
Beautiful.
Fine. I can handle my own, but you guys are both implying that the quality is going to suck. That's what your lean to is. So if the quality doesn't suck, Mr. Van Epps, and if the quality doesn't suck, Mr. Kramer, if it's just as freaking good and it could be better.
It's going
to be better. Why wouldn't
Well,
it be?
it could be, but
I just
it's
think
still there.
it's going to be a hard battle. It'll be a hard sell.
What's the difference between a knockoff Louis Vuitton bag and a real Louis Vuitton bag?
Okay, so
Right?
where are most Louis Vuitton bags that are sold in the United States? Where are they made, Dave?
I don't know.
I'm setting you up, son. Where are they
France,
made?
China,
No,
China,
Taiwan.
of course,
no,
whatever,
no.
right?
They're made in California. Most
Okay.
Louis Vuitton bags, one of my coaches used to work for Louis Vuitton. He said Louis Vuitton, for the longest period of time, tried to keep it a secret that all the US bags that are sold in the United States are made in freaking California. Hilarious, but true. Now I'm going to tell you guys a
Okay.
quick story, and you tell me whether this is still this is valid. Okay, I'll go quick. We're in Italy. I don't remember the town. We will go into a foundry, and there's this guy that's making that's the son of this grandson of the who it doesn't matter. The history doesn't matter. This guy is casting new Ferrari 250 series motors, and you can go in there and buy a new cast short block, all the bits and pieces. But let's just focus on the short block. One of the guys that was with me was part of this tour was looking for the very thing, but he wanted to have it stamped with his VIN number because the original his Ferrari wasn't numbers matching. So the guy at the foundry had an exclusive contract with Ferrari that the only, and so he would sell it. I think my numbers are right. He would sell a new short block to my friend for 25 grand with no stamping. If it had the Ferrari stamp on it, he had to buy it through Ferrari Classique, and it was like $250,000 for literally the exact same thing, but the stamp was on with the numbers matching. Okay. Now I walked out, he stayed in, I lingered and I was looking at some other stuff, and I heard them making a side deal where he was going to have his engine stamped outside of Ferrari Classique. Okay. That actually happened. It's Italy. That happens. But okay. And Porsche did the same thing. Porsche was selling re-stamp blocks. He just talked about it. So are you telling me right now that my Ferrari 250 California, whatever the heck it is, 250 California short wheelbase with a re-stamp, do I have to people aren't disclosing that they're re-stamped and they're not the original cases. I got news for you. It just is numbers matching. And they don't do that in Porsche world either. So does that minimize the value?
That's why Porsche doesn't give out the numbers anymore on your, they won't give you the number to let you know what the original motor number was. They killed all that. I didn't know that for that exact reason.
No. I mean, right now, 69 and older, you can get a Cardex.
But answer my question. Yeah. My question is does that make the car worth less? It's officially numbers matching. It was made by a Ferrari authorized vendor, 6 months ago. Does that make it less valuable?
It potentially does, based like if you're talking about like a 73S, which they made a lot of, even a 73 RS, they made a lot of. They made 1,500. I think on a car like that, it does because you have enough comps where there is no questions, no stories. And this one has a little bit of a story. If you're talking about a Ferrari 250 California or a Narch Spider or something that there's like 10 of, like I think it's going to matter less because when do these come up for sale? So I think it just matters on the production number. But if you want a really good 73 RS, you can go get one. They're not hard to get. You want a really good Speedster. You want a good 911s they're mass production cars. All
if you
Porsches
go back to the premise. So let's just say, even though they're hard and they're rare and they don't come up, a 250. If you had two that were available and one had a re-stamped motor and one had an original motor,
but you wouldn't know, David.
More money.
You wouldn't know. These hit the market.
That's the point. If you're trying to tell me that somebody's going to deceive the public, that's a different story. I mean, I'm assuming that knowledge is known, that somebody's out there saying, okay, this is a re-stamped brand new motor, blah, 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 not the original.
What I'm trying to tell you guys is the market doesn't really care. I'm sure there's outliers that care, but the market doesn't really care, mostly for the reason that Paul just said. But the market doesn't really care. And here's where I'm going. This is the reason I think it's a great opportunity for you, David, not something to be worried about. I think the world would love an affordable long hood. And just to Dave's question, the guy that asked the question, they are making these from the F bodies all the way to 964s. And I also read that they're going to make 993s too. So they're making basically the whole run of air-cooled chassis in essence. They're going to sell as a core chassis, and they're going to supposedly sell it as a core chassis painted with the body panels already on it. And they're going to put it in a crate, and they're going to ship it to your driveway near you. And I personally think if you can make the numbers,
I'll build them and ship them to Mexico. That's what I'll do. I'll build them and ship them out of the country.
Well, I don't know.
Look at someone like Gunther Works. There is nothing about that's Porsche left. I mean, they're carbon bodies. They're starting with a 993 because they want to start with a legitimate 993 chassis number. And here's a company that's making literally the whole car. There's very little left except for I think he said the cowl, and there's like two other parts just so that it's part of that car. And I don't know if that's for legal reasons, to sell the VIN
But
number.
the chassis is original. It's just the exterior stuff is to see
Oh,
it.
no, no, no. There's very little original. It is.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It's just like the
I
VIN,
didn't
the
know that.
cowl, and the rest of it's a carbon body. It's all carbon.
But you're saying the tub, if there's a tub on a unibody, you're saying that's not original either?
No,
Well,
there's very little of that that's
Oh,
left on
I
on
didn't know
those.
that. Wow.
Now I don't know about Singer. I think Singer might be
no, Singer
different.
starts with a full car. I mean,
Yeah.
you're getting the real tub there for
But
sure.
if you
And I
look
think
at
you do
Gunther
on the
Works,
Gunther Works too. I do think you're
they
getting your
start with a
tub for
full
sure.
car, but what ends up as what's left of that car,
Mhm,
very, very little.
mhm.
It's literally a VIN number.
If you could make,
Well, and
go ahead. I'm sorry, David.
I was just going to say, if you were going to do that and do some custom something, right? That you bring this thing in and now you've built something like a Gunther Works or like a Singer out of it. That's kind of a different mindset or a different positioning than it would be to just create another brand new, like repopping a '69 Camaro kind of thing,
Yeah.
where you're repopping an SC. I just don't. I think those are two different market segments.
So I'm not into old 60s muscle cars. I think they're cool though. But if you look at what Revology is selling their Shelby cars for, the GT350s and whatever, they sell for basically the same price as the original car. And you guys know those people are as anal as Porsche people are. So
Well,
I
they're building
think
hot rods. They're not trying to even build a recreation. They're building a resto mod.
Mhm.
That's where you step in a different world. Now, I mean, look at Roof. Roof isn't doing their carbon tubs. He told me they're made at a company in Italy that we talked about, I think, on the Alpina episode. So, like, let's say Dave decides I'm going to build a Sunderworks
Hot rod.
special edition, and
Yep.
he gets these bodies from China. And the end of the day, no one cares about who the supplier is. It's just going to be, here's my special car. I basically create a new body. I do this. It's going to be, I mean,
Yeah.
if he wanted to become a
Different market.
manufacturer, he
that's
puts
what
his
I'm
own
saying.
number.
That's what I'm trying to express to you
Yeah.
guys. That's
But
where I think
that's
the market's
fine for
going to be.
that. Not
Yeah.
like, hey, I'm going to go recreate a 67S.
No, 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 no,
That,
no. I'm not suggesting that. I'm saying somebody, I mean, thank you, David or Paul, for reeling me in. I really do believe that there is a market for something sub $100,000 that is going to be an F body, G body type experience. That's a different buyer than these super analytical types that are caring about every single detail of an old car. That's a different buyer. I think you could come out with, David, if the numbers made sense, you could make probably, I mean, just putting numbers to it, 20 or 30% on one of these things and have a brand new, even we willing to warranty it for a year or two, whatever, you could sell the crap out of those. There is a segment of people that want the old car experience, but do not want to buy an old car. And you could produce that. And I think that's what we're going to start seeing. We could very well, there's people doing that with 2002s. All you guys know all of this. But there it is. That's my whole premise. That's the reason I'm excited about it.
it'll be interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
it will
Yeah.
happen. We'll start seeing them come in. There'll be shitty ones to begin with, and
Yep.
eventually they'll get a foothold and they'll make sense
If
for
any
someone.
listener out there has actually got one of these or thinking about it, please give me a call. I'd love to learn what you know and what the delivery lead times are and all that kind of stuff. It'd be interesting. It would be. Might be
Yeah.
something that we end up doing.
Well, again, going back to our original premise, we need to basically encourage anybody who's making anything cool in automotive to absolutely do it. Even if it's a money losing prospect for them, still do it because we want to talk about it on our podcast.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
All right, guys. So let's get to our fourth topic next week. How about that?
I was like, no more.
Wonderful. Yeah, we're done here today, baby. We're 2:15 in right now.
Yeah, no,
If we cut the show down to two people, we could probably stretch it to 4 hours.
yeah. It'd just be the Paul show.
Yeah, basically. I think that's your secret fantasy, by the way. You could just look at yourself in the camera and talk to yourself.
That'd be it. Hey, that's my life.
All right. Well, so listen, your homework from today's podcast is obviously like, subscribe, definitely you do all the things because that helps us to get the word out. We are doing this as mostly a passion project. Subscribe to the newsletter. Again, please do subscribe and leave a nice comment on YouTube or Instagram or wherever else. If you're on iTunes, that really makes a difference as well. Look, all these silly, algorithm things make a huge difference as to whether or not the show gets discovered. And we certainly appreciate your continued support. Do send your questions in. You can message us over on Instagram, or you can message all three of us down below. All of our contacts are down below. Make sure you guys, if you're looking to get into the, obviously you know enough about these two, you can trust them to send your Porsche business. I have worked with these guys for a long period of time, and reach out to them. If you're ready to buy or sell something, call Kramer. If you're ready to restore something or buy or sell something on the other coast, Dave's always got something cool in one of his storage containers behind his garage. All right. In the meantime, you guys have a fantastic day. We'll talk to you on the show next week.
Sounds
See you
good.
guys.
See
Bye.
you guys.